Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Testing.
Hey everyone. Sorry I'm late. My computer was updating. Okay. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exactly 5. So we are going to get going. I don't want to delay. I anticipate that we will be able to get through these cases, hopefully relatively quickly. So I know originally I think I said I'm thinking maybe 9 to 12, but I'm hoping maybe it'll be sooner than that. Hold on, let me make sure can you guys still see me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Or at least I can.
Okay. Yeah, I can. My computer's moving really slow. Okay. Um. All right. I'm gonna bring this board meeting to order at 9:04 a.m. And I will start with a roll call. Brandon Brown here. Shanoa Miller. Though I think she's hopping on. I think she's having some computer issues right now too. Diana Saganovich.
Here.
Dave Gatton.
Here.
Edwin Moore.
Here.
Glenn Parker III. Glenn told me he's not going to be able to make it. He has a work conflict. Same thing with Billy Sharp and Waverly Willis.
Here.
All right. Okay, with that, we're going to move forward with our presentation of investigations. Just as a reminder to everyone, because this is technically a special meeting, we have to follow the agenda. We can't deviate. So if anything kind of comes up that's unrelated to these cases or the couple things I have at the end, we'll just have to address that at our September meeting in a couple weeks. So with that, I will now turn things over to our administrator, Jeff Winninger, to start our presentation.
All right. Good morning, everybody. We're going to be starting with the new cases, but one of our investigators is not here just yet. So we're going to start with item number 4, which is 2026-0063. The complainant is Walter Warsham Jr., and Kevin Wynn is the investigator.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. This is OPS case number 2026-0063. The complainant is Walter Warsham Jr. The date of the incident is April 1st, 2026. The subject officers involved are Patrol Officer Aaron Thompson, badge number 511, Patrol Officer Brandon Radabow, badge number 363, Patrol Officer Adam Thompson, badge number 1369, and Patrol Officer Daniel Rutt, badge number 851. According to the complaint, Mr. Warsham alleged that the responding officers to an incident did not properly investigate the incident by speaking to his wife or neighbors. The complaint further alleged that the arrest was "quote unquote" bogus. This investigator made 3 attempts to contact Mr. Warsham to get his any additional information regarding this, which was unsuccessful. Based on the information provided in the citizen complaint investigation, the Office of Professional Standards recommends that allegation A, lack of service / no service, against Patrol Officer Aaron Thompson, badge number 511, Patrol Officer Brandon Radabow, badge number 363, Patrol Officer Adam Thompson, badge number 1369, and Patrol Officer Daniel Rutt, badge number 851, be unfounded, as the preponderance of the evidence, to include the officer's WCS, supports a finding that on or about April 1st of 2026, officers did investigate the incident and speak to all witnesses consistent with manual rules and regulations, section 4.18. Contrary to the complaint's allegation that they did not interview witnesses. Allegation B, improper arrest against Patrol Officer Aaron Thompson, badge number 511. Recommendation is exonerated, as the preponderance of the evidence, to include the officer's WCS footage, supports that Patrol Officer Thompson had probable cause on or about April 1st, 2026 to arrest the complainant for aggravated menacing, as the complainant did pull a firearm out on 2 repossession agents during this incident. And he further followed up and was given recommendation from Sergeant Kenneth Allen, badge number 9167, and was directed to initiate the arrest, which is consistent with manual rules and regulations, section 2.07 and General Police Order 3.04.01. This concludes this statement. Any questions, please?
All right, thank you for that presentation. Do we have any questions for our investigator? Okay, hearing none. Does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns, statements they'd like to make? Also, let the record reflect that Member Miller is here. Okay, hearing none. Would anyone like to make any motions?
I will.
All right.
Case number 2026-0063 regarding 4 different officers. Allegation A, lack of service, no service against Officer Aaron Thompson, badge number 511. My motion will be that this be unfounded, as the preponderance of the evidence, including WCS, finds that the officer did investigate the incident, speak to witnesses, consistent with manual section 4.18, and contrary to the complainant's allegation.
I second that motion.
All right, second from Member Moore. All right, we have a motion for unfounded. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Aye.
1 abstention. Do you want to provide a reason?
I was not here for the presentation by the investigator or any type of deliberation.
All right, so we have 1 abstention. That motion still carries.
I'll continue.
Yep.
Same case, 2026-0063. Same allegation, lack of service against Officer Brandon Radabaugh, badge number 363. My motion will be for unfounded, using the same rationale I did for the prior officer.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for unfounded. I need a second.
I second that motion.
All right, seconded by Member Moore. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. No, sorry, one abstention for the record, but that motion carries.
I'll continue on. Same case. Allegation A, lack of service, no service against Officer Adam Thompson, badge number 1369. My motion will be that this allegation be unfounded or the same rationale mentioned previously in this case.
All right,
I
we have a
second
motion on
that.
the floor for unfounded that's been seconded by Member Moore. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Aye.
That motion carries. I just realized we could have grouped the officers.
Oh, can we?
Yeah,
Oh, I wasn't aware.
yeah.
Okay, well, I got
I mean,
one
I think
more
we're
that
now
we
anyway,
didn't
so-
group. Same case, Officer Daniel Rutt, badge number 851. My motion is allegation A, lack of service, no service, be unfounded for the same rationale mentioned previously in this case.
And I will second that motion.
All right, we have a motion for unfounded that has been seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Aye.
One abstention. That motion carries.
And same case, 2026-006, allegation B, improper arrest against Officer Aaron Thompson, badge number 511. My motion is that that be exonerated, as preponderance of evidence showed that officer had probable cause to arrest the complainant for aggravated menacing. He was following Sergeant Allen's directive to do so, and his actions were consistent with Manual Section 2.01 and GPO 3.04.01.
I second that motion.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for exonerated that has been seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Aye.
One abstention. That motion carries. All right, I think that's it for that case.
All right, thank you.
All right, the next case will be number 5. You can find that on page 5. It'll be 2023-0085. The complainant is Erica Kane, and the investigator is Lampkin.
Good day, everyone. This is OPS case 2023-0085, complainant Erica Kane, and the initial allegation is unprofessional behavior conduct. The subject officer is Patrol Officer Anthony Lucas, badge number 2396. And on April 16th, 2023, the Jack's Casino security initiated a call for assistance on the complainant, her husband, and another couple, as they were denied entry into the casino, which conversely caused the disturbance. During the interaction, Mrs. Kane, who was 4 months pregnant at the time, alleges Patrol Officer Lucas was close to her face and yelling, and that his conduct toward her was unprofessional. During our OPS investigation, the complainant initially stated that she had footage of the incident. However, she did not provide the video footage of the incident. Jack's Casino CD did not have any audio to reflect the complainant conversation and her party. And also on the CD, on the floppy disks video, there was no presence of Patrol Officer Lucas, badge number 2396, at the time of the encounter. And lastly, Patrol Officer Lucas, who works off duty for Jack's Casino, does not recall the alleged incident. Therefore, there's a lack of service of evidence to determine whether the complainant's allegation did or did not occur. So, in our findings, states due to the lack of evidence supporting the complainant's allegation for unprofessional conduct on or about April 16, 2023, a determination cannot be made whether Patrol Officer Anthony Lucas, badge number 2396, did or did not violate Manual Rule 5.01 and 5.09. For this reason, OPS recommends a finding of insufficient evidence for allegation A, unprofessional behavior / conduct against Patrol Officer Anthony Lucas, badge number 2396. Thank you. Are there any questions?
All right. Thank you for that presentation. Does anybody have any questions for our investigator? Diana?
It's not actually the investigator, but I'm looking at the agenda and it has a Detective Demas rather than Patrol Officer Lucas on the agenda. I think we have a typo here.
Yeah, there's something. Yeah, the Detective Dylan Demas, badge number
Yeah,
1701 is listed.
Right. The agenda for August 11th, when you tabled this case, actually had the correct officer, but this one doesn't. You should probably correct that.
Okay. So yeah, let that be noted that we amend the agenda to reflect the correct officer. And then when we make the motion that we use the correct officer as well. Does anybody else have any other questions, comments, or concerns about the case we want to discuss? Okay. Hearing none. Would anybody like to make any motion?
I'll roll
I can make the
on.
motion.
Okay. Diana?
In case number 2023-0085 regarding allegation A, unprofessional conduct behavior in regards to Police Officer Anthony Lucas, badge number 2396. My motion is for insufficient evidence. The preponderance of the evidence include the, the reports and the WCS that was available from the casino, however, with no audio, and the investigation by Investigator Lampkin. Preponderance of the evidence indicates that we have insufficient evidence to determine whether or not the unprofessional conduct happened in regards to Manual Rule 5.01 and 5.09. Sorry, that was convoluted.
No, it's okay. It works. Okay, we have a motion on the floor for insufficient evidence. Can I get a second?
I second that motion.
All right, it's been seconded by Member Moore. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Right, and I think that was the only one. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, we'll proceed on to item number 6. It's case number 2023-0101. The complainant is Kwamia Mayat, and the investigator is Lampkin.
Hello again. OPS case number 3-0101, complainant Kwamia Mayat, spelled M-Y-N-A-T-T. The initial allegations are A, improper procedure, B, unprofessional behavior, conduct, and C, improper procedure discovery. The subject officers are Detective Ashley Schutt, that's SCHUTT, badge number 888, and Lieutenant Michael Schroeder, that's spelled SCHROEDER, badge number 8578. On May 6, 2023, Ms. Mayat alleged during the arrest of her underage son that she was not provided any information as to why her son was being arrested, was not informed by CDP that a warrant, was informed by CDP that a warrant was not necessary. And while in police custody, her son was forced to talk to CDP without her permission or presence. Also, she alleges that the officers were unprofessional toward her. Lastly, OPS discovered throughout this investigation that while Ms. Mayat's son was held at the District 4 Station holding room. He was handcuffed to an inanimate object, a chair, which is a violation of GPO. Per this investigation, Ms. Minette was indeed made aware of the reason as to why her son was being arrested by Lieutenant Schroeder, badge number A578, and CDP. While at the 4th District Precinct and the WCS interview held by Detective Shutt and Mrs. Minette's son, Ms. Minette was not present. It was noted that no reasonable effort was made to contact the parent, guardian, or family member, and OPS request for the Form 10 per Detective Manual, page 22, which notes that proof will be indicated attesting consent from the parent, end quote, which was not available for this investigation. Conversely, via email correspondence, OPS was informed that it was, quote, extremely rare that this form is used at the Detective Bureau, end quote. This investigation noted that this policy was revised in 2005 and the year of this incident was 2003. For a WCS interview with Lieutenant Schroeder, OPS inquired why the parent was not informed about her son's Miranda reading. Lieutenant stated that they had numerous encounters with Ms. Minette throughout the process of her son's arrest. However, during this investigation, it was discovered that no reasonable efforts were made requesting the mother's presence or informing her of her son's Miranda, and no evidence of the Form 10 was available attesting the mother's decision to waive her presence per the Detective Manual, page 22, attesting consent from the parent. Per this investigation, OPS discovered via WCS footage Ms. Minette's son was handcuffed to an inanimate object, arm of the chair, while detained in the interrogation room. OPS provided the WCS footage for Detective Shutt's to Detective Shutt for memory, and after viewing the video, she stated she did not remember this happening and that this procedure is not taught. Detective Shutt reported that she do not typically handcuff kids to a chair, but that she typically allowed the other cuff to hang to the side. In the WCS interview, Lieutenant Schroeder shared that the chair is not considered an inanimate object since it was not secured to the floor. And juveniles are typically handcuffed to prevent escape, as the holding rooms have 2 doors, which may lead to escape. In closing, throughout the course of this investigation, Detective Shutt, badge number 888, and Lieutenant Schroeder, badge number 8578, interactions with Ms. Minette were professional and courteous. Based on the preponderance of evidence gathered throughout this investigation, OPS recommends the following. For allegation A, improper procedure, OPS recommends a finding of sustained against Detective Ashley Shutt, as the gathered evidence to include the WCS footage, incident reports, and interviews support a finding that the alleged conduct did occur. Also, OPS recommends a finding of unfounded for Lieutenant Schroeder, badge number 8578, as the gathered evidence to include WCS footage, incident reports, and interview supports the finding that the alleged conduct did not occur. For allegation B, unprofessional behavior conduct, OPS recommends a finding of unfounded against Detective Ashley Shutt and Lieutenant Michael Schroeder, as they gathered evidence throughout the investigation, which includes WCS footage, incident reports, and interviews supports the finding that the alleged conduct did not occur and the officer's actions were consistent with Manual Rule 5, Section 5.01. And lastly, allegation C, improper procedure. Discovery. OPS recommends a finding of sustained against Detective Ashley Shutt, badge number 888, and Lieutenant Michael Schroeder, badge number 8578, as the evidence gathered throughout this investigation to include the WCS footage and interview supports the finding that the alleged conduct did occur. Thank you for that. And are there any questions?
Thank you for that presentation. I do have a question before I open it up to the board. I see that you mentioned the allegation C, and we don't have that in our agenda. And it's not, and I don't think it's in the report either. In the report, I just see allegations A and B. Did I miss that? Go back. Maybe that was in.
I only see two on the agenda too.
Is it just A and B, or did I mishear that? You did say allegation. There's an allegation C, right?
Yeah, I discovered something, so that created the improper procedure for allegation C.
Okay, but that's not in the report, right?
A, B,
It is not.
Okay. So can you
we can
read to us what allegation C is again?
allegation C. Improper procedure discovery.
Okay, and what was the basis for that again? Like, what were the?
Let me see. That it violated the detective manual that a child should not be handcuffed to an inanimate object. And no Form 10 was the inanimate object.
So allegation C is for improper procedure as it relates to handcuffing
To an inanimate object, a child to an inanimate object.
Okay, and allegation A. Well, okay. So under allegation A, it lists both the detective procedures, but also GPO 3.03.03, which I think is the GPO that relates to the handcuffing. Is that right? Let me go back here into the report. Yeah, GPO 3.03.03, juvenile arrestee booking and housing. Juvenile shall not be handcuffed or secured to any inanimate object while at a district or unit. So it seems like allegation A is contemplating that already. Do we need to separate allegation A into both an allegation specifically for handcuffing and the allegation specifically for not getting the mother's permission and filling out the Form 10? Do those things need to be separate, or is it okay for us to combine that into one allegation for improper procedure for two reasons? I don't know if anybody has any thoughts or opinions on that. I mean, I guess it's not a huge deal for us to split it up in this case. I know we may run into some other cases where it can get kind of minute for having an allegation for everything that's done. We've talked about that with Administrator Wininger about how much do we split these cases, or how many allegations do we split into?
It looks like it's covered in allegation A.
Mm-hmm.
To me.
Yep. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think we're probably good either way. To be honest, I think we could probably do it either way. It's 6 on one side, half dozen on the other, kind of thing. So I think we'll go forward with the two motions, and it keeps it consistent with what's in the report and what's in the.
I did have a question about the handcuffing to a chair, and the detective stated that the chair is not an inanimate object. Is that correct?
Apparently, that's what the explanation was. It's not an inanimate object because it's not. What did they say? Because it's not bolted to the ground. When that's literally not what the definition of an inanimate object is.
Okay, all right. I was just making sure I wasn't,
No, you're not tripping.
You're correct.
Okay. And maybe nobody can answer this question. So, in a case like that, they're expecting an officer to sit with the child in a waiting room?
So yes, a child should not be unattended. An underage child should not be unattended or without a family member or a guardian or the parent. There was an officer there that was with the child but he was handcuffed throughout the entire process. He was handcuffed. The only time he was not cuffed was when they uncuffed him so that he can sign his Miranda, but they cuffed the other hand back to the chair.
So they can cuff him to transport him, but once he's transported, he has to be uncuffed and supervised.
Yes.
Is that still the case? I know you said that there was a change in the detective manual at some point, right? And now it's different in 2025 than 2023. Was that related to this, or was that related to the other portion of this?
It was just related to the form. I was told that they rarely use that form.
Form 10,
Yeah.
which is the parental waiving of
Yes.
silence or rights or whatever. Okay. That seems interesting to me. I mean, not really something for us to deal with at all, but I mean, I understand that they're minors and they're children, but I would imagine that's still a safety risk to have, let's say, a 16 or 17-year-old uncuffed in a police station. But again, that's above my pay grade, I guess. And so in this case, it is. I mean, it's pretty clear that they're not allowed to do it, and they did it. So
Generally speaking, there's specific policies that has to do with ages of the juvenile that would be detained, as well as the offense. It's typically the practice that you would not have them handcuffed and that they would be being monitored. You not only are prohibited from keeping them contained in like a cell, but you're not to handcuff them to anything. And in this case, if it's not against the GPO to do so, it's certainly a huge tactical error, because you have a juvenile that then has a chair that is attached to them that they can use as a weapon if they chose to do so. So it certainly was not in the best practices, whether it's in violation GPO or from a tactical perspective. Not a good idea.
Yeah. Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions, comments, concerns? I think we're going to take that allegation A for both, so that way it's consistent with the report. Otherwise, we'd have an allegation that just doesn't have a corresponding allegation in the report. So we'll just take allegation A as kind of both. But yeah, does anybody else have any other questions, concerns? I can't see everybody on the screen, so if you guys do have something at any point, just say something. Okay. But hearing none, would anyone like to make any motions on this case? Okay, I'll take it. All right. In OPS case number 2023-0101 for Officer or Detective Ashley Schmutt, badge number 888, for regarding allegation A, improper procedure in alleged violation of Detective Manual Procedures for Juvenile Offenders, page 22, and GPO 3.03.03. I move for a finding of sustained, as the preponderance of the evidence, including interviews, WCS footage, and written reports, supports that the alleged conduct did occur and was inconsistent with division standards and violated the aforementioned rules and GPOs. Specifically, that Officer Schutt failed to obtain or failed to make a reasonable effort to obtain the mother of the subject minor's child. The subject minor failed to get her permission to interview the child. And then additionally, that the minor was handcuffed to a chair, which is an inanimate object as contemplated by the GPO under 3.03.03. So again, my motion is for a sustained finding.
Second.
All right, we have a second from Member Miller. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Okay, for we need a group level now.
I
Yep.
got a couple questions about the group level. I was looking at I was looking at conduct unbecoming for group level 2. But then there's also call for service failure to respond, investigate, arrest, and or properly clear. So I was leaning towards the properly clear. And then I believe at the bottom of group 2, there's a like tactics violation of training. I'm not sure specifically with this case. Those were the ones that I was looking at.
Yeah, I think the tactic violation of training is something that'll work here.
Yeah.
Particularly for the reasons that Jeff mentioned about the actual danger that it poses to actually handcuff the person to something that's not actually bolted down.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then also conduct unbecoming. And then I don't know if there's any language here specific to the failure to notify the parent.
No, I don't see any.
Okay, well, there's still other similar conduct.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anybody else has any other thoughts. I mean, we're talking about a group 2 violation. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts or arguments for a group 1 or a group 3 that they'd like to make before I make the motion. Okay.
Oh, I was also going to state for group 1, if anyone was looking, there's also a tactics violation of training and unsatisfactory performance for group 1, if anyone was leaning towards that way.
That's true. I don't know. Does anybody have any thoughts on group 1 versus group 2?
I was thinking, this is Diana. I was thinking group 1. It sounded like from everything that was stated that this detective was kind of in that area where what their practice is in general. And so, she didn't see herself as doing anything outside of like the ordinary that they do, which is a bad practice. But I don't know if it rises to a level of group 2. I could go either way.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's a good point. I thought about that too. There was nothing in here that seemed so egregious or out of the ordinary that but it's like there are clear kind of rules that are laid out that were violated. Yeah. Does anybody else have any other thoughts on group 1?
I'm fine with the group 1 also.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I move that that this be considered a group 1 violation for unsatisfactory performance, as well as tactics and violation of training for failure to adhere to the detective rules and the GPOs as stated in my previous motion. So again, this is my motion now is for a group 1 violation.
Second.
Seconded by member Miller. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Okay. Same case. 2023-0101. This is for Lieutenant Michael Schroeder, badge number 8578, for allegation A of improper procedure and alleged violation of the detective manual procedures, as well as GPO 3.03.03. I move for a finding of unfounded as the preponderance of the evidence, including video footage, interviews, and written reports, establishes that the alleged conduct did not occur because the officer was not involved in any of the aforementioned activities that led to this complaint.
Second.
Seconded by member Willis. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. All right. And same case 2023-0101. This is going to be allegation B of unprofessional behavior and conduct and alleged violation of Manual Rule 5.11 for both Lieutenant Michael Schroeder, badge number 8578, and Detective Ashley Shutt, badge number 888. I move for a finding of unfounded, as the preponderance of the evidence, including WCS footage, interviews, and written reports, establishes that the alleged conduct did not occur, as there was no evidence found that at any point either of these two officers were unprofessional in their behavior, apart from what we've mentioned before in previous allegations.
Second.
Seconded by Member Willis. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Okay, so that's it for that case. So we can move on.
Okay, we'll be moving on to number 7 on the agenda. It's case number 2024-0283. The complainant is Miriam Sullivan, and the investigator is Lampkin.
Thank you for that. Okay, the initial allegation A is lack of service, and B, improper procedure. And the subject officer is Detective Kevin Smith, badge number 1622. Ms. Sullivan alleged that on November 6, 2024, Detective K. Smith, badge number 1622, did not respond to her regarding the sex offense violation committed against her and informed her to go to a local police department in California for a photo lineup update. On the date in question, Ms. Sullivan lived in California and was informed to go to a nearby police station and do a photo lineup. Detective Smith was provided with a Facebook image of the potential suspect in question and conducted a video lineup with the witness to the crime scene. Detective Smith made numerous efforts to reach Ms. Sullivan regarding her case, and each of his efforts were unsuccessful. However, during one conversation held with Ms. Sullivan, Detective Smith provided her updated information which would have helped in her sex crime case, provided full attention to her by documenting the lineups, and displayed professionalism during his video review. Findings. The Office of Professional Standards recommends a finding of unfounded or lack of service, as the preponderance of the evidence supports the finding that Detective Kevin Smith's badge number 1622 did provide service and contact consistent with Manual Rule 4, Duties, Section 4.03, and the Cleveland Division of Police Detective Manual, CPDM, page 5, Detective Responsibilities, Section 1, and that the alleged conduct did not occur. For allegation B, improper procedure, OPS recommends a finding of unfounded, as the preponderance of the evidence supports a finding that Detective Smith did provide services and contact consistent with Manual Rule 4, Duty, Section 4.03, and the Cleveland Division of Police Detective Manual, CPDM, page 5, Detective Responsibilities, Section 1, and that the alleged conduct did not occur. Thank you. Any questions?
All right, thank you for that presentation. Does anyone have any questions for our investigator? Does anybody have any thoughts, questions, comments, or concerns about the case as a whole?
I just want to make a comment. Again, we have a typo on our agenda. Although allegation B in one column says improper procedure, in the next column it says unprofessional behavior. I think it's just a typo and just needs to be improper procedure across the whiteboard. Just want to be consistent here.
Yes, yeah. Allegation B should be improper procedure.
Thank you.
And it's listed as that under the yep. Okay. Anything else? Would anyone like to make any motions?
On mine, allegation B, it does say improper procedure.
Yeah, if you look over next to it where it says Detective Kevin Smith, under that
Oh,
it says
okay.
allegation B, unprofessional behavior. Yeah, so those two aren't matching.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Got it. Got
yep,
it.
yep. So that
I-
one needs to be moved. Yep.
Okay, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Regarding the case of 2024-0283, Detective Kevin Smith, badge number 1622 for allegation A, lack of service, insufficient service regarding manual rule 4.03. I make a recommendation that we find this unfounded due to the preponderance of the evidence, including footage, interviews, and written report establishes that the alleged conduct did not occur.
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion for unfounded that has been seconded by Member Moore. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries.
Okay, same case number as I mentioned before for allegation B, same officer, Detective Kevin Smith, badge number 1622. Allegation B, improper procedure regarding manual rule 4.03. I am making a recommendation that we go with unfounded due to the preponderance of the evidence, including WCS footage, interviews, and written report established that the alleged conduct did not occur.
I second that motion.
All right, we have another motion on the floor for unfounded. It's been seconded by Member Moore. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. All right, I think we're good on that case. So we can move on to the next one. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go back to case number 1 on the agenda. You can find that on page 4. It's case number 2023-0012. The complainant is Maurice Bay, and the investigator is Kabir.
How are you all doing today?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good. So this is one of our last 23 cases. This case was a little interesting when it first came in. I wasn't assigned until 2025. When the complainant initially came in, the complainant stated that the incident happened in 2023, but through our investigation, we realized the incident happened in 2021. So I think that's what created some of the overlag and not being able to find information on it. However, once I was assigned a case, I did make contact with the complainant. The complainant didn't have any information to provide me during the investigation to help me to, file his claim. And his claim was that he was racially discriminated against during a traffic accident. However, he said that there was a court record of this incident, and I was able to find the court record of the incident. However, in the incident, the complainant filed an affidavit to redact all of the charges against Officer McDaniels. In his affidavit, he stated there was no racial discrimination in this case, nor was there any fraud or perjury by P.O. McCandless due to Mr. Bay initially stating the accident happened on January 23. OPS was unable to recover any WCS of this incident. However, in the court filing, Mr. Bay was able to look at the WCS of the incident, and in the court document, he said that he was mistaken and that there wasn't any. And when he reviewed the WCS, and based on that, we contacted Mr. Bay, and when we told him about the information, he wanted to retract his complaint as to not have contradictory statements. This case was initially handled by Internal Affairs because his complaint initially was that the officer had committed fraud and perjury against him by completing the report incorrectly, leading to the racial discrimination. So Internal Affairs did initially take the case. However, because of the time overlap, they had already adjudicated the case prior to us being notified of it. That's what also created some delay with this case. But based on the investigation of the citizen's complaint, on or about January 21st, 2021, the Office of Professional Standards recommends allegation A, bias policing against Detective McCandless, be unfounded as preponderance of evidence to include Mr. Bay's own court testimony and later admission to OPS that the alleged conduct did not occur and that there was no violation of General Orders GPO 1.708. That completes the investigation. Pending any questions.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for our investigator? Anybody have any questions, comments, thoughts, or concerns about the case?
I have a question.
Yep.
I know this guy, so should I sustain from this, or how does that work?
So the standard is, or the requirement is, if you feel like you can be impartial, then you can vote. If you feel like you can't be impartial, then you should abstain. Yeah, I mean, I think generally, if you feel like the relationship is too close, I would probably recommend you abstain, but you certainly don't have to if you feel like you can still be impartial.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions? All right, anybody like to make any motions?
I just want to add one thing to
All right, Ed.
the abstaining of knowing someone. The other standard is that you do not, if you're going to abstain, typically I think we would say it up front, but you are not allowed to, if you have a conflict, you're not allowed to participate in discussions regarding the case either, just for point of reference.
Right. Yep. Okay. All right. In OPS case 2023-0012, for Detective Daniel McCandless, badge number 644, for allegation A, biased policing and alleged violation of GPO 1.07.08, I move for a finding of unfounded as a preponderance of the evidence, including records and video footage, as well as the complainant's own statements and admissions. The alleged conduct did not occur.
I second that motion.
Seconded by Member Moore. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. All right, and that's it for that one. So thank you.
Okay, we'll be moving on to item number 2. It's case number 2024-0052. The complainant is Jasmine Scott, and the investigator is Kabir.
Again, this is OPS case 2024-0052. The complainant is Jasmine Scott. This was actually a very interesting case. The complainant alleged that there was no OH1 completed, and I was able to actually learn something during this investigation myself. So Ms. Scott was the complainant, but she was not the driver of her vehicle during the accident. The driver of the vehicle was involved into the accident and was taken to the hospital. Patrol Officer Ayers was dispatched to the accident. However, en route to the dispatch, she had a higher priority call of a suicide in progress, which takes priority, and so she was diverted to that call. When the suicide in progress was over, she went back to the scene. However, because it was transported, vehicles was moved, and through dispatch was told that one of the complainants would actually come to the district to file the report. So P.O. Ayers had broken away. When I brought her in for her OPS interview, asked her why it wasn't done, she didn't even know they were even transported to the hospital because that was not relayed to her. The individual who was transported to the hospital, Tishana Miller, went to the district, 4th district, to file the complete report herself. When she went to the district, because the officer did not respond on scene, the OH1 is kept in-house. So the way it's set down, and if the officers do not respond out to the scene, the OH1 is kept internally. And so when the OH1 was kept internally, they could not access it. And that's what led to them not believing the OH1 was completed. But it actually had been completed. They just did not know how to access it. And that was something that we were trying to figure out as well. So based on the investigation and the complaints, Officer Professional Standards recommends unfounded for the allegation A of lack of service, failure to file OH1 against P.O. Kirk Kenneth, badge number 572, as preponderance of evidence gathered throughout the investigations to include WCS, an OH report, incident reports, and interviews, supports a finding that the officer did on or about March 11, 2024, complete an OH1 report and his actions were consistent with GPO 8.102. Additionally, the Office of Professional Standards recommends exonerated for allegation A, lack of service against P.O. Carly Ayers for failure to file OH1. The preponderance of evidence gathered throughout this investigation supports the finding that the alleged conduct did occur, but the actions were consistent with Ohio crash reporting procedures and GPO 8.102. That concludes the investigation. Pending any questions.
All right, thank you for that explanation and that presentation. Does anyone have any questions for our investigator? All right, does anyone have any questions, comments, or concerns about the case they'd like to discuss? Okay, hearing none, would anyone like to make any motions?
I will.
Okay, thanks.
All right, in case number 2024-0052 regarding P.O. Kenneth Kirk, batch number 572, lack of service, GPO 8.1.02. I am recommending that we make a motion for this to be unfounded because due to the preponderance of evidence, including WCS footage, interviews, and written report established that the alleged conduct did not occur.
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for unfounded, and this is for Officer.
Kenneth Kirk.
Oh, this is for Kirk.
Number
Okay.
572.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor for unfounded for Officer Kirk under allegation A. Has been seconded by Member Moore. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries.
Okay, same case number for allegation A regarding P.O. Carly Ayers, badge number 635 for lack of service, no service, failure to file regarding GPO 8.1.02. I am making a motion that exonerated because due to the preponderance of evidence, including interview, WCS footage, written reports that the alleged conduct did not occur. However, the conduct was carried out in alignment with the standards outlined in GPO Manual 8.1.02.
All right. We have a motion on the floor for exonerated. Can I get a second?
Second that motion.
Seconded by Member Moore. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. All right, that's it for that case. Thank you. We can move on to the next one.
Okay, we'll be next one will be number 3 on the agenda. It's the top of page 5. It's case number 2025-0123. The complainant is Taylor Miller, and the investigator is Kabir.
Again, this is OPS 2025-0123. The complainant, Taylor Miller. The subject officer is P.O. Divine White, badge number 1597. Ms. Miller alleged that she was arrested for felony burglary and taken to county jail. And she alleges that this action did not occur and she should have not been taken to jail and she was not Mirandized. Based on our investigation, Ms. Miller entered into a dwelling that she believed to be her ex-partner. She was entering what she believed to be her ex-partner's home, but it wasn't the ex-partner's home. It was the neighbor who lived downstairs. She was able to, by force, kick and break in the door, causing the neighbor to call the police. Once the police came and got the statements of what had happened, the officer, after kicking the statements and talking to the upstairs partner, identified that it was the wrong house. Ms. Miller thought because it was the wrong house, she should not be arrested. Essentially, should have not gone through any procedures. However, the officers, after talking to them, talking to the complainant who called 911 and told how she had broken into the house, broken the door, she wanted to be pursued. The officer did do the arrest. However, for burglary on the scene, however, the charge was reduced to attempted burglary when it went to the prosecution, and we did determine by video that Ms. Miller was Mirandized during the encounter. And based on that, the Office of Professional Standards for allegation A, improper arrest against P.O. Divine White, recommends it be exonerated. As a preponderance of evidence to include the officer's WCS interview supports the finding that the alleged conduct did occur, but the officer's actions were compliant with the Ohio Revised Code 2911.12, which is burglary, and CDP manual rules and procedures. Additionally, based on the investigation of the citizen's complaint for the incident that occurred on May 1st, 2025, the Office of Professional Standards recommends allegation B, improper procedure for failure to Mirandize against P.O. Divine White, be unfounded as preponderance of the evidence to include the officer's WCS and interview supports the finding that the alleged conduct did not occur and that the officer's actions were compliant with Manual Rules 4.01 and the Ohio Revised Code 2911.12. That completes the investigation. Pending any questions. Yes, sir.
Brandon, you were muted. I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do we know what was the outcome of the criminal case regarding attempted burglary?
Yes, we do. So there was a plea deal. She did plead the original indictment for burglary for criminal damaging and endangering misdemeanor. Complaint handler was sentenced to community control and probation for 2.5 years.
So she did plead guilty
She
to attempted burglary.
Yeah, attempted burglary and criminal damaging, endangering a misdemeanor, endangering.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Anybody has any other questions, comments, concerns, or statements they want to make about the case?
I hate to do this again, but we have a typo again.
Yep. Yeah, I was going to bring that up too. Yeah. So we have in our agenda under, let me go back. We have, wait, no, I don't see this one. I'm thinking about another one that's coming up. This is case 3. Which one are you seeing, Diana?
Case number 3, 2025-0123. Our agenda says the police officer's last name is Miller and it's actually White.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll need to get that corrected. Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? All right. Would someone like to make? Would anyone like to make any motions?
I will.
All right. Thank you.
And regarding case number 2025-0123 for allegation A regarding P.O. White, badge number 1597 for improper procedure regarding Ohio Revised Code 2911.12. I am making a recommendation that we find this exonerated because due to the preponderance of evidence, including interviews, WCS footage, and written reports, support that the alleged conduct did occur. However, the conduct was carried out in alignment with the standards outlined in ORC 2911.12.
All right. We have a motion on the floor for exonerated. And a second.
Second.
Seconded by member Saganovich. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries.
Okay, same case number, same officer, White, badge number 1597 for allegation B, improper procedure, Miranda warning regarding Ohio Revised Code 2911.12. I am making a recommendation that we find this unfounded because due to the preponderance of the evidence, including WCS footage, interviews, and written reports, established that the alleged conduct did not occur.
All right, we have a motion for unfounded. Can I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Member Saganovich. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Okay, and that's it for that case, so we can move on to the next one.
Okay, we're going to be moving on to item 8, where you can find it at the bottom of page 6. It's case number 2023-0229. Complainant is Tabitha Gilbert, and the investigator is Green.
Yes, this is OPS case 23-0229. The complainant is Tabitha Gilbert. The date of the incident is September 19, 2023. It involved an ongoing neighbor dispute. The responding officers that day were Officer Saladin Taylor, badge number 2388, and Officer Evan Tremaglio, badge number 2510. The subject officer of this complaint is Officer Saladin Taylor, badge number 2388. The complainant alleged unprofessional conduct, behavior, and lack of service. The complainant stated that Officer Taylor was rude because he sent his partner to speak with her instead of addressing her directly, failed to listen to her side of the story, and stated that she had 2 ears and 1 mouth and that she didn't have any brains. The WCS footage from Officer Tremaglio captures only his interaction with the complainant. Officer Taylor's WCS was not activated and therefore did not record the incident. On July 31st, 2024, Officer Taylor was interviewed by OPS and stated that he gave the complainant a stern warning in an effort to de-escalate the situation and address concerns of both parties, and also to prevent further negative interactions between neighbors. And he stated that he told Ms. Gilbert, she had 2 ears and 1 mouth as a way to say that she needed to listen in order to avoid being arrested. OPS recommends a finding for allegation A, insufficient evidence on professional conduct and behavior, as preponderance of the evidence fails to establish whether the alleged conduct did or did not occur in violation of Manual Rules 5.08. We're going to exonerate allegation B, lack of service, as preponderance of the evidence gathered throughout the investigation supports the finding that the alleged conduct occurred, but the officer's actions were consistent with law and Manual of Rules 4.18. Violations unrelated to the complaint, we will sustain a WCS violation against Officer Saladin Taylor, badge number 2388, as the preponderance of the evidence supports a finding that the alleged conduct occurred and that Officer Taylor's failure to activate his WCS was inconsistent with GPO 40604 wearable camera system. That concludes the investigation for OPS case 2023-0229, pending any questions.
All right, thank you for that presentation. I do have a few questions,
Yes.
Most of which are just related to what we have here in the report, versus, I won't say versus, but in comparison to what you just presented to us. Well, okay, I'll start with the GPO violation allegation. So I understand that was something that was found during the course of the investigation, but like we stated earlier with a previous case, it's not contemplated here in our report.
Okay.
There is no allegation C listed. And there is actually an investigator's note under allegation A, where it says that during Officer Taylor's interview, it was learned that his WCS was non-operable.
Yeah, so, okay, let me clarify. This was a transfer from Techmeyer. So she did the interview, and let me see, looking at what we have uploaded. Yeah, I believe there's a note at the bottom of the report. Officer Taylor informs the OPS investigator that attempts to obtain his WCS recordings related to the incident were unsuccessful, but he was able to view it. So I'm looking at the report here as well. Which page? Are you referencing page 3?
I am referenced, yep,
Yeah.
page 3 where it says investigator, not the conclusion.
Yes. So I based it off of the interview that she completed with Officer Taylor. He mentioned the WCS recording, and yeah, whatever information that she had in the case file is what I used. So he mentioned that, he tried to obtain it and he was unsuccessful. That's what I have. So do I need to? So what
Well,
specific adjustment needs to be made?
yeah. So if we're gonna make a finding on a separate allegation,
Okay.
I'd like for the report to make it clear that we're contemplating that and what effort was done in OPS investigating that. I mean, I'm not saying that you
Okay.
guys didn't. I just would like for the
Okay.
report to reflect that. And so I don't really want us ruling on an allegation that is not at all listed in there. And the only thing that's in there is an investigator's note that kind of says that it's not a violation. That kind of points to it not being a violation because it says that the WCS was inoperable.
So I will create an addendum. They just sent me over a note to create an addendum for
Yep.
that. So we can clear that up as well. Okay. All right.
Okay. Yeah. Can we get an addendum for that? I don't know,
Okay.
board. Maybe we should just table it till we get that, so we
That's
can
fine.
kind of see everything laid out clearly, and
Okay,
then we'll
that's
make a determination. Yeah. So unless somebody else has any other kind of questions that they'd like answered before we table it, I'm probably gonna move to table it.
You want to table the entire case or just for that allegation?
I'll just table the entire case, so that I mean, it won't save us a tremendous amount of time to adjudicate it now and then adjudicate it later too. Let's just do it all at once.
No, I do see it. So any analysis on page 4. Yep. Yeah. So I see it. 2024. Yep. All right. Got it. Thanks.
Yep. Okay. So with that, I move that we table case number 2023-0229 until our next meeting, so that an addendum can be created contemplating the potential WCS violation.
Second.
Seconded by member Gatton. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. All right. Thank you. We can move on to the next case.
The next case will be item 9 on the agenda. It's case number 2024-0266. Complainant is Robert Walker, and the investigator is Green.
Okay, hopefully this goes smoothly. This case was 2 separate cases. I was instructed to consolidate it into one. He had several allegations on both. I believe it originated 2024-0265 and 66. I don't know. An adjustment has been made. So the complainant is Robert Walker. The subject CDP members are Detective Anthony Lee, badge number 255, and Detective Jared Woods, badge number 2170. The date of the incident is August 9th. It happened in front of the complainant's home, and this is a suspected OVI allegation. The complainant alleged that he was arrested while seated in his vehicle parked in front of his residence. He further alleged that during his arrest, responding officers pointed firearms and tasers at him, forcibly removed keys from his pocket, struck him in the side, unlawfully searched his locked vehicle, and manipulated WCS recordings associated with the incident. The complainant alleged that on or about October 10th, 2024, he was stopped by Cleveland Division of Police Vice Unit officers who were dressed in all black and driving Jeep and Dodge Charger vehicles. He further alleged that on an unknown date, officers conducted a traffic stop at the intersection of 65th and Clark Avenue for a tent violation. He alleged the officer searched his vehicle and accused him of participating in drag racing activity. And he also had an additional allegation that he was stopped near West 91st Street and Denison Avenue. The complainant alleged throughout his complaints excessive force, harassment, and biased policing. The investigation established that available WCS recordings were captured the entirety of Mr. Walker's arrest. They do not reveal any evidence supporting the complainant's allegation that detectives pointed a firearm at him, forcibly removed the keys from his pocket, struck him in the side, or unlawfully searched his vehicle. On August 9th, 2024, the complainant was placed under arrest for a suspected OVI, secured in the rear of a patrol vehicle. While in the patrol vehicle, the complainant made statements that he smoked marijuana, supposed to swallow dope, and that there was marijuana residue in the ashtray of this vehicle. Officers searched the complainant's vehicle and recovered a loaded firearm and marijuana. OPS recommends a finding for allegation A, excessive force, unfounded as a preponderance of the evidence to include GPO 20102, 20103, 20104, 20201, 20203, 20205, 30401, 40101, 40604, 30101, 30202, and supports the finding that the alleged conduct did not occur. For allegation B, harassment, OPS recommends a finding of unfounded as a preponderance of the evidence, supports the finding that the alleged conduct did not occur in violation of Manual Rules 401, 405, and 4011. There were no corresponding records related to incidents as alleged by the complainant. And for allegation C, unfounded for bias policing, as a preponderance of the evidence supports the finding that the alleged conduct did not occur consistent with GPO 10708. That concludes this investigation pending any questions.
All right. Thank you for that presentation. Does anybody have any questions for our investigator? All right. Does anyone have any questions, comments, thoughts, concerns about the case in general? Okay. Would anyone like to make some motion? Okay. I will make the motions. All right. In case 2024-0266 for officers for PO Anthony Lee, badge number 255, and Detective Gerard Woods, badge number 2170, for allegation A of excessive force and alleged violation of GPOs 2.01.03, 2.01.04, 2.02.01, 2.02.03, 2.02.05, 3.04.01, 4.01.01, 4.06.01, 4.06.04, 3.01.01, and 3.02.02. I move for a finding of unfounded as a preponderance of the evidence, including WCS footage, interviews, written reports, supports that the alleged conduct did not occur.
I second that motion.
All right, seconded by Member Moore. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. All right, same case, 2024-0266. This is for the same officers, PO Anthony Lee, badge number 255, and Detective Gerard Woods, badge number 2170. This is for allegation B, for alleged harassment, alleged violation of Manual Rules 4.01, 4.05, and 4.11. I move for a finding of unfounded as a preponderance of the evidence, including interviews, WCS footage, and written report supports that the alleged conduct did not occur.
I
Second.
second that motion.
Second by Member Willis. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. All right. One more. 2024-0266. Officer Anthony Lee, badge number 255, and Detective Gerard Woods, badge number 2170. This is for allegation C of bias policing and alleged violation of GPO 1.07.08. I move for a finding of unfounded as the preponderance of the evidence, including written reports, WCS footage, and interviews, supports, establishes that the alleged conduct did not occur.
I
Second.
second that motion.
All right, seconded by Member Moore. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. All right, and that's it for that case, so we can move on to the next one.
Okay, the next case is item 10. It's case number 2025-0014. Complainant is Joseph Atkins. And the investigator is green.
All right, so the complainant is Joseph Atkins. This is OPS case 2514. The date of the incident is January 22nd, 2025 and January 2025. This occurred on the District 3 phone. It was a phone conversation. The subject officer is Sergeant Daniel Florence, badge number 9340. He's of CDP D3, Downtown Service Unit. The complainant alleged harassment, unprofessional conduct, behavior, and improper procedure. The complainant alleged that Sergeant Florence repeatedly contacted him by phone and left voicemail messages. He stated that Sergeant Florence contacted him to advise him of his Miranda rights and later read the conditions of the protection order obtained by a CDP officer against him in connection with a previous OPS complaint. The complainant alleged that Sergeant Florence's involvement in the matter constituted a conflict of interest because the officer who obtained the protection order was Sergeant Florence's colleague. The complainant further alleged that he had not received proper notice of the protection order because he receives mail through a P.O. box, and he maintained that service by mail was not a valid method of providing notice of a protection order. There is a case number correction on the report. It shows 2020-0120. It should reflect, I believe, 2023-0120. I believe that report was completed by former investigator Szymanski. The investigation established that on December 18, 2024, the complainant was listed as a respondent in the civil protection order. At some time, Sergeant Florence was assigned to investigate the matter by CDP D3 Acting Lieutenant Jacqueline Bennett, badge number 8565. On December 23, 2024 and January 17, 2025, the complainant made defamatory remarks about the complainant on his social media accounts. On January 22nd, Sergeant Florence contacted the complainant by phone, identified himself, stated the purpose of his call, and left a voicemail message. On January 23rd, 2025, Sergeant Florence contacted the complainant by phone, identified himself, explained the nature of the investigation, and advised the complainant of his Miranda rights and read conditions of the protection order. On January 24, 2025, the complainant was criminally charged with 2 counts of violating a protection order while committing a felony and 1 count of retaliation. OPS recommends a finding for allegation A, harassment, is unfounded, as preponderance of the evidence to include WCS recordings, police reports, complainant and officer statements, and GPO 10707 supports a finding that the alleged conduct did not occur. For allegation B, OPS recommends a finding unfounded for unprofessional conduct and behavior, as a preponderance of the evidence to include WCS recordings, police reports, complainant and officer statements, to be consistent with Manual Rules 4.18, 501, 502, 501, 508, and 509. We're going to exonerate improper procedure as a preponderance of the evidence gathered throughout the investigation to include WCS recordings, police reports, complainant and officer statement supports the finding that the alleged conduct by the complainant occurred. However, the investigation determined that the officer's actions were consistent with GPO 50502. That concludes the investigation for OPS case 2025-0114, pending any questions.
All right, thank you for that presentation. Does anyone have any questions for our investigator? Okay, does anybody have any thoughts, questions, comments, or concerns about the case? All right, hearing none, does anyone, would anyone like to make any motions?
I will.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so this is this case number 2025-004 or 2020-0120?
250014.
Okay, for case number 2025-0014 regarding Sergeant Daniel Florence, badge number 9340, for allegation A, harassment, GPO 1.07.07. I'm making a motion that we find this unfounded because due to the preponderance of the evidence, including WCS footage, interviews, and written report established that the alleged conduct did not occur.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for unfounded. Can I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by member Gatton. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries.
Okay, allegation B, same case number for unprofessional behavior conduct regarding manual rules 4.18, 5.01, 5.02, 5.08, and 5.09 regarding the same sergeant badge number 9340 for allegation B, unprofessional behavior / conduct. I'm also recommending that we make a motion for unfounded because due to the preponderance of evidence, including WCS footage, interviews, and written report established that the alleged conduct did not occur.
All right, we have a motion for unfounded. Can I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by member Gatton. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries.
Okay, same case number for allegation C, improper procedure regarding the same Sergeant Florence, badge number 9340. Allegation C for improper procedure regarding GPO 5.02.02. I am making a motion of exonerated due to the preponderance of the evidence, including interviews, WCS footage, written report supports that the alleged conduct did occur regarding GPO 5.05.02. However, the conduct was carried out in alignment with the standards outlined in the aforementioned GPO.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for exonerated. Can I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by member Gatton. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. All right, and I think that's it for that case. Thank you. We can move on to the next one.
Next one is item 11. You can find it at the top of page 8. It's case number 2025-0028. Complainant is Shadina Scott, and General Manager Watson will be presenting.
Okay, good morning.
morning.
This is OPS 2025-008. The complainant is Shadina Scott. The CDP member is P.O. Timothy Ward, badge 1825. The allegations are improper citation, bias policing, and the lack of service for insufficient service. On January 23rd, 2025, Shadina Scott was driving by a Cleveland Division of Fire truck parked on the sidewalk when the fireman opened the door and knocked off her passenger side mirror. Ms. Scott could not get into the other lane to yield for the fire truck due to heavy traffic. P.O. Ward responded from the Accident Investigation Unit to investigate. On scene, P.O. Ward told Ms. Scott that it was the fault of the fireman. However, on February 5th, 2025, Ms. Scott received a citation in the mail for unsafe operation around an emergency vehicle. Ms. Scott is alleging improper procedure citation, bias policing, and a lack of service for insufficient service against P.O. Ward. She claims that P.O. Ward issued her a citation after telling her she was not at fault and arrived 1 hour late, though she was working. She also stated, "I felt like they were racist. It's just horrible treatment that I received." P.O. Ward stated in his interview that initially, when speaking to Ms. Scott, it sounded like it was the fault of the fireman. He also told her to file a morals claim to help with her insurance company. Upon further review with his sergeant, he determined that she did have a duty to move over a lane because they were at a location on an emergency. She was summoned based on this conclusion. His understanding was that she was driving when the door opened, not stationary. Ms. Scott never told him that she did not get over due to traffic. OPS recommends a finding of exonerated for allegation A, improper citation against P.O. Ward, as a preponderance of the evidence to include WCS, interviews, court summons, and the OH1 supports a finding that the alleged conduct did occur, but the officer's actions were consistent with ORC 4511.213 and GPO 3.4.06. OPS recommends a finding of unfounded for allegation B, biased policing against P.O. Ward, as the preponderance of the evidence supports a finding that the alleged conduct did not occur and the officer's actions were consistent with GPO 1.01.08. OPS recommends a finding of unfounded for allegation C, lack of service, insufficient service against P.O. Ward, as the preponderance of the evidence supports a finding that the alleged conduct did not occur and the officer's actions were consistent with Manual Rule 4.18. I'll take any questions.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. Does anybody have any questions for our investigator or for our general manager? Yeah.
I do.
Yep.
I don't know if it's a question. I guess it's a point of discussion. Here's a case where a citizen's driving down the street. A fire truck opens her door, knocks her mirror off. Everybody at the scene agrees that it was the fireman's fault. The fireman said it was. The police officer said it was. They held her up, told her file a moral claim. There was never a point where the officer or anyone on scene said, we've got an emergency vehicle, she didn't get in the other lane. There's no evidence that shows, was there anybody in the other lane? I believe the law says you need to move over a lane if you can. So if there was a car there, she wouldn't have been able to, or to slow down. There's nothing referenced by the police officer that says she was going fast or had an opportunity to move over at the scene. After the fact, he's speaking with his sergeant, and the sergeant says, well, shouldn't she have moved over a lane? And he says, I think she probably should have. And 2 weeks later, they sent her a summons for it being her fault. So that whole thing doesn't add up to me. I'm not buying it. If I'm a citizen at the scene and an officer says, this shouldn't have happened, the firemen admit that it shouldn't have happened, I don't want to see a ticket 2 weeks later and the rationale being, oh, my sergeant, who was not at the scene, and we didn't ask all those questions, could she have moved over or did she slow down? It's just nonsensical to me. I don't buy it. And I'm not saying that this is what's happening, but it kind of stinks of a situation where the police say, we'll give them the ticket and the city won't have to pay for the mirror. I don't think that's what happened, but that type of action by an officer gives rise to that kind of thought process from citizens. I don't know if others agree or think that I'm,
I mean, I think those are excellent points. I think at the bare minimum, this is an example of an officer making conclusions and making assurances to a citizen when all of the facts weren't gathered yet, and then later learning some more facts and then changing his mind. But you've already said what you said to the citizen, and then not only that, you didn't go back and talk to her again. At the least, it's that. But to your point, Dave, I mean, there's also the fact that this officer didn't fully investigate what happened here before making the statement to the citizen. But two, like you said, gathering the additional information about, like, were you able to get over? Was there anybody next to you? The things that matter as to whether or not you properly yielded to an emergency vehicle. So I think we may be looking at, just a failure to fully investigate something.
Yeah, and I agree with what you said, except you said later on he learned more facts. He didn't learn more facts. He was told by his superior, maybe we could cite her for, I don't know what that discussion was, but somebody that wasn't at the scene, that was his superior, said, should she moved over a lane? He didn't learn a new fact. It was just suggested by his superior that she did something wrong.
Yep, I agree. Any other thoughts? All right. Okay. Anybody like to make any motions?
Mm-mm.
Okay. All right, I'll make the motion. Motions. Okay. This is case number 2025-0028. For Officer Timothy Ward, badge number 1825. This is for allegation A, improper procedure, for an improper citation. I'm hesitant on where I want to go with this, but an alleged violation of Ohio Revised Code 4511.213 and GPO 3.04.06. I move for a finding of sustained as the preponderance of the evidence, including written reports, WCS footage, and interviews, supports that the alleged conduct did occur, was inconsistent with division standards, and violated the relevant GPOs. Specifically, specifically that, sorry, I want to give a little bit context since we're sustaining, or since my motion is to sustain. Specifically, that the officer wrote the citation based on incomplete data and incomplete investigation by not actually asking the citizen or the complainant in this case whether or not there was an opportunity for her to move over, whether there was in this, well, at least safely, or at least do due diligence to investigate the material facts that he based his citation on. And so because of that, the citation itself was improper. So again, my motion is to sustain allegation A.
Second.
Seconded by member Gatton. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed?
Mhm.
Any abstentions? That motion carries. Okay. Group level, I am going to find a. I think I'm just going to recommend a group level 1.
Do you want to do the violation of training or for group level 1 or unsatisfactory performance?
Yeah. So I move that this be considered a group level 1 for unsatisfactory performance, violations of training, and I don't see this specifically listed here, but failure to properly investigate. Failure to properly investigate. So again, my motion is for this to be considered a group level 1 violation.
Second.
Seconded by member Gatton. Those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Okay. Same case 2025-0028 for allegation, same officer, Officer Timothy Ward, badge number 1825 for allegation B, bias policing for an alleged violation of GPO 1.07.08. I move for finding of unfounded as the preponderance of the evidence, including interviews, WCS, and written reports establishes that the alleged conduct did not occur.
Second motion.
Seconded by member Moore. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. All right. Okay. Same case 2025-0028. Same officer, Officer Ward, badge number 1825 for this is allegation C, lack of service, insufficient service. I am in alleged violation of Manual Rule 4.18. I am going to move for this to be unfounded because, the preponderance of the evidence including WCS footage, written reports, and interviews, establishes that the alleged conduct did not occur, in that there is no additional alleged conduct beyond what we've already adjudicated in allegation A, and I don't want it to be a duplicative allegation as far as the lack of service. I think it's covered within what we moved for allegation A. So I'm gonna move for this to be unfounded. Yeah. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by
I have a
Member
que-
Willis.
I have a
That
question.
was a little weird. I don't know if anybody wants to have some discussion before we vote.
I'd like to have some discussion because I'm a little nervous about saying that he fully investigated, that's what you're saying by this being unfounded, and
Mhm.
yet saying he did something wrong with the citation. I would sustain both of them.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be a double penalty just because there's two things sustained. It could be all the same thing in terms of what the decision is as far as discipline.
hmm
But I think it would be inconsistent of us to, find this unfounded, because then we're saying he did fully investigate.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes sense. Jessica.
When I wrote this, the insufficient service was meant to address her accusation that he arrived late while she was on the clock,
Oh, okay.
not for the ticket.
That's a different light. If we do it based on that, then I would say exonerated, if that's what it's for.
Okay. I am going to. It's already been seconded. So okay, I am going to move to amend my motion from unfounded to exonerated. Um, Specifically because this allegation is geared toward the timeliness of the officer's arrival. And for that, this is exonerated. Member Miller?
Even though the motion has already been put on the floor and it's been seconded, I thought we have to go through with the motion instead of doing an amendment, even though it's already been in process.
Yeah, we do. I think you're right.
Hmm.
I think we have to do something about the first motion before we can do the second motion.
Yeah.
Okay, so strike the amendment motion because it was improper. And so right now, the motion on the floor that has been seconded is the motion for unfounded, which I think, based on discussion, we may want to change. But because the motion is on the floor, we have to vote on the motion on the floor. So the motion on the floor is for, the motion on the floor is for unfounded. So with that, all in favor of unfounded, say aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
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 Any abstentions?
Abstain, I stepped away.
Okay. All right. So that motion does not pass. So now I will make the motion that for I would make a clean motion. So in case 2025-0028, for the same officer, Officer Timothy Ward, badge number 1825, allegation C, lack of service, insufficient service, and alleged violation of manual rule 4.18, specifically being the allegation that the officer response time was improper. I move that this be exonerated as the preponderance of the evidence, including WCS footage, written reports, and interviews, establishes that the alleged conduct did occur and that the officer did arrive about an hour after the incident. However, this was not inconsistent, where I guess I'll put it this way, it was consistent with our manual rules. And so therefore, my motion is for exonerated. Can I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Member Miller. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Okay, 2025-0028 for Officer Timothy Ward, badge number 1825, for allegation D of unprofessional behavior or conduct.
Stand this.
So it says here that it was administratively dismissed because it's out of our jurisdiction.
That should say Cleveland Fire members, not P.O. Timothy Ward.
Ah,
Because I was like, what about this is out of our jurisdiction? Okay. All right. well, yeah, then we'll just note for the record that any potential violations for any Cleveland Division of Fire employees falls outside of our jurisdiction. So we won't be making any rulings on that. Okay, and with that, we are that's it for that case. So we can move on to the next one.
Next case will be number 12 on the agenda. It's case 2025-0035. The complainant is Jeffrika Poindexter, and the case will be presented by General Manager Watson.
Okay, OPS 2025-0035. The allegations are against members Elena Chiachi, badge 2066, and Pio John McCartney, badge 820. The allegation is a lack of service for no service. On December 27th, 2024, Jeffrika Poindexter called the police to report that some of her personal documents had been stolen from her house. The call was classified as a nonviolent crisis intervention priority 3. Pio Chiachi and Pio McCartney responded and ultimately did not file a police report for these allegedly stolen documents, which included her housing lease, after noting no signs of forced entry. Though Ms. Poindexter insisted that she did not misplace her lease, Pio Chiachi used the following evidence to come to the conclusion that no crime was committed. No forced entry, no other items missing, and a brand new television on the floor that could have also been stolen had someone broken in. Pio McCartney reported that there had been police presence at her house before, citing CIT matters. During their interaction, she showed signs of dementia, so her allegation did not fit the requirement for taking a police report when she said her lease was gone. Both officers used their experience with CIT to come to the conclusion that a crime was not committed and that Ms. Poindexter misplaced her lease. However, on February 27th, 2025, Ms. Poindexter filed a complaint with CDP Internal Affairs Unit in person, alleging a lack of service from Pio Chiachi and Pio McCartney. Then, on March 3rd, 2025, Pio McCartney reported back to Ms. Poindexter's home along with another officer to complete a police report for the burglary theft incident on December 27th, 2024, after he was directed to do so by his commanding officer. His commanding officer did not tell him why he had to go back and take a report. On March 3rd, 2025, the officers also completed a CIT report, and CIT officers, along with a social worker, followed up with Ms. Poindexter on March 5th, 2025. OPS recommends a finding of exonerated for allegation A, lack of service, no service against Pio Chiachi and Pio McCartney is a preponderance of evidence gathered throughout the investigation to include WCS, 911 calls, incident reports, and interviews, supports a finding that the alleged conduct did occur, but the officer's actions were consistent with GPO 5.11.02 and Manual Rule 4.18. I'll take any questions.
All right, thank you for that presentation. Does anybody have any questions for our general manager? Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns about the case itself? Okay, would anyone like to make any motions? Okay, I'll make the motion. All right, case 2025-0035 for officers Elena Chiachi, badge number 2066, and Officer John McCarthy, badge number 820. For allegation A of lack of service, no service under Manual Rules 4.01, 4.18, and GPO 5.11.02. I move that for a finding of exonerated as a preponderance of the evidence, including interviews, WCS footage, written reports, and dispatch record supports that the alleged conduct did occur and that the officers did not take a police report. However, the conduct was carried out in alignment with the standards outlined in the applicable GPOs and manual rules given the situation. So with that, my motion is for exonerated.
Second.
All right, seconded by, who's that? Member Willis. Seconded by Member Willis. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. All right, that was the only motion for that case, so we can move on to the next one. Thank you.
Next case is item 13. It's case number 2025-0037. Complainant is Heaven West Campbell, and the presenter will be General Manager Watson.
Okay, OPS 2025-0037. The Cleveland Division of Police members are PO Elijah Cintron, badge 1115, PO Christian Fernandez, badge 317, and Lieutenant Daniel Day, badge 8585. The allegations are lack of service, no service, harassment, and unprofessional behavior and conduct. On March 2nd, 2025, Heaven West Campbell was involved in a dispute with her landlord and downstairs neighbor, Joseph Howard, after a neighbor called the police on Miss West Campbell for a noise complaint. Miss West Campbell and Mr. Howard's civil issues date back to December 2024, and they are in the middle of an eviction. P.O. Cintron and Fernandez responded to the scene and spoke to neighbors, Mr. Howard and Mr. Howard's girlfriend, and later advised Miss West Campbell to keep the noise down. Lieutenant Day was called to the scene after Miss West Campbell became upset, arguing with multiple people and yelling out of her window. Miss West Campbell alleges that all three officers were unprofessional in their conduct, shining the lights in her face, and should not have been there to address a civil matter. She also alleges harassment and a lack of service for getting Mr. Howard's side of the story, but not hers, and failing to investigate her criminal claims against Mr. Howard. In his interview, P.O. Cintron stated that upon arrival, they spoke to two neighbors and the landlord. They could hear loud talking and screaming, so the landlord asked them to knock on Miss West Campbell's door. Cintron told her she was not being cited, but that if the noise continued, she would be. She recognized Cintron as her cousin's fiance, so Cintron stepped away to call the road boss and remained in the vehicle for the duration of the call to avoid a conflict of interest. In his interview, P.O. Fernandez stated that they were trying to listen to her side to be fair. P.O. Fernandez stated that he shined the light in her face while she was yelling at her landlord out of her upstairs window in order to get her attention to stop her from yelling. This was not a civil matter because it was a noise complaint from the neighbors who mentioned loud music. Lieutenant Day stated that upon arrival, Miss West Campbell was yelling out the window, causing a disturbance, and when he tried to speak to her, she continued to yell at him. Lieutenant Day asked her to come down to talk to them, and she refused. She was not cited for disturbing the peace and disorderly conduct because they could not give her the ticket while she was upstairs. Lieutenant Day stated that he was not shining the light in her face to stop her from recording on her phone. He was trying to see into her window. OPS recommends a finding of unfounded for allegation A, harassment against all three officers, as the preponderance of the evidence gathered throughout the investigation to include WCS, incident reports, and interviews supports a finding that the alleged conduct did not occur and the officers' actions were consistent with Manual Rule 3.02. OPS recommends a finding of exonerated for allegation B, lack of service, no service, as the preponderance of the evidence gathered throughout the investigation supports a finding that the alleged conduct did occur, but the officers' actions were consistent with Manual Rule 4.18. OPS recommends a finding of unfounded for allegation C, unprofessional behavior conduct, as the preponderance of the evidence gathered throughout the investigation supports a finding that the alleged conduct did not occur, and the officers' actions were consistent with Manual Rules 5.01, 5.08, and 5.09. And I'll take any questions.
All right, thank you for the presentation. Does anyone have any questions for our investigator? All right, does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns, statements about the case? Okay, would anyone like to make some motions?
I will.
All right, thanks.
Okay, regarding case number 2025-0037 for P.O. Cintron, badge number 1115, Lieutenant Daniel Day, badge number 8585, and PO Christian Fernandez, badge number 317, regarding allegation A, harassment, ORC 2917-11 and Manual Rule 3.02. I am making a recommendation that of unfounded because due to the preponderance of evidence, including WCS footage, interviews, written report established that the alleged conduct did not occur.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for unfounded. Can we get a second?
I second the motion.
All right, seconded by Member Moore. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries.
Okay, same case number regarding allegation B, lack of service, no service, regarding Manual Rule 4.18. Same aforementioned officers. I am making a recommendation of exonerated because due to the preponderance of evidence regarding Manual Rule 4.18, the conduct was carried out in alignment with the aforementioned manual rules.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for exonerated. Can I get a second?
I second it.
All right, seconded by Member Moore. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries.
Okay, same case number regarding allegation C, unprofessional behavior / conduct, Manual Rule 5.01. Same officers that were aforementioned. I am making a recommendation of unfounded because due to the preponderance of evidence, including WCS footage, interviews, written report established that the alleged conduct did not occur.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for, excuse me, for unfounded. Can I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Member Miller. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. All right, I think that's it for that case, so we can move on to the next one.
The next one's item 14, case number 2025-0039. The complainant is Marlo Boyd, and the presenter will be General Manager Watson.
All right, OPS 2025-0039. The CDP members are Sergeant Brian Kreitz, badge 9299, PO Masai Fluker, badge 1098, PO Eric Mills Jr., badge 2005, and Detective Angela Owens, badge 878. The allegations are lack of service, no service, and unprofessional behavior or conduct. Marlo Boyd alleges that on February 20th, 2025, she was physically assaulted by Ralph Jackson. P.O. Fluker and P.O. Mills arrived on scene as Jackson was leaving the scene unbeknownst to them because they did not have a description of his car upon arrival. Ms. Boyd alleges that after letting him drive away, she overheard P.O. Fluker tell Jackson not to return to the house to speak to them. For WCS, P.O. Fluker advised Mr. Jackson that they do not conduct interviews over the phone and did ask him to return to the house. Sergeant Kreitz responded for the request of the officers on scene. Detective Angela Owens was assigned the investigation and later advised Ms. Boyd that the prosecutor chose not to pursue charges against Jackson. Ms. Boyd alleges a lack of service from all 4 officers because Jackson was not pursued and arrested. She also alleges unprofessional conduct on the parts of P.O. Fluker and Detective Owens because they were quote-unquote nasty to her. All 3 officers on scene, Fluker, Mills, and Kreitz, attempted to explain the process to Ms. Boyd and took statements from her and other witnesses. However, Ms. Boyd was verbally combative with all parties and unwilling to fill out various forms in relation to completing a report. Nevertheless, Ms. Boyd was provided with a police report number and driven home by the officers due to intoxication. P.O. Owens followed up, and conducted a full investigation, collecting evidence and witness statements. According to Owens's WCS recorded interview with Mr. Jackson and a witness, Ms. Boyd attacked Mr. Jackson after he threw beer on her and scratched his face. Then he held her down to stop her and left shortly thereafter before officers arrived. Owens advised Miss Boyd that she presented her findings to the prosecutor and is not the adjudicator when it comes to pressing charges. P.O. Pfluger was respectful to Ms. Boyd in his speech and conduct, even as she cursed at him and accused him of telling Mr. Jackson not to return to the scene. WCS P.O. Pfluger attempts to correct her multiple times, telling her that he was only telling him that he could not interview him over the phone, but she was obstinate in her accusations toward him. Detective Owens was informative and respectful in her discussions with Ms. Boyd over the phone. OPS recommends a finding of unfounded for allegation A, lack of service, no service against Sergeant Brian Kreitz, Sergeant Masai Fluker, P.O. Masai Fluker, P.O. Eric Mills Jr., and Detective Angela Owens as a preponderance of the evidence to include the officer's WCS, the crime report, and the 911 chronology report supports the finding that the alleged conduct did not occur and that the officers were compliant with GPO 3.2.02, Manual Rule 4.18, and Detective Unit Manual Detective Responsibilities. OPS recommends a finding of unfounded for allegation B, unprofessional behavior conduct against P.O. Pfluger and Detective Owens, as a preponderance of the evidence supports a finding that the alleged conduct did not occur and that the officer was compliant with Manual Rules 5.08 and 5.09. And I'll take any questions.
All right, thank you for that presentation. Does anybody have any questions for our investigator, for our general manager? Okay, does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns, or statements about the case? All right, would anyone like to make any motions?
I'll make a couple.
All right, thank you.
For case number 2025-0039, for allegation A, I'm sorry, my laptop's about that. For allegation A, lack of service, no service, I'm gonna, of course, group these together. Sorry. For allegation A, lack of service, no service for Sergeant Brian Kreitz, badge number 9299, P.O. Pfluger, badge number 1098, for P.O. Mills, badge number 2005, and for P.O. Owens, badge number 878. My motion is for unfounded as the preponderance of evidence to include officers WCS crime report, 911 chronology report shows that the conduct did not occur and that officers were complying with Manual Rules 4.18 and GPO 3.202.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for unfounded. Can we get a second?
I second that motion.
Seconded by Member Moore. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries.
Great. Motion for allegation B, unprofessional behavior and conduct for P.O. Pfluger, badge number 1098, and for Owens, for P.O. Owens, badge number 878. My motion is for unfounded as the preponderance of evidence to include WCS footage and crime report and 911 chronology report shows the conduct did not occur. And they were in compliance with rules 5.08, 5.09.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for unfounded. Can we get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Member Gatton. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. All right, so I think that was all of the cases, right? I didn't miss anything, did I, Jeff? Okay. All right.
That concludes. The only ones left is the one that was tabled, I believe, number 8.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we have a couple updates that we want to go through. Shouldn't take very long. So I will start with our administrative dismissal procedure. So a memo was provided to the board that Administrator Wininger wrote up, kind of going over what our current administrative dismissal procedures are and how he would like to kind of modify what those what the procedure looks like. Not a policy change, not a manual rule change, anything like that. But an interpretation that we've kind of been moving under that may be different from the way we should be moving. So Jeff, I don't know if you want to give us, I mean, you don't have to run through the entire thing because we have the memo, but if you want to just kind of give us the highlights and, for any member of the public that may be watching, just so people can kind of understand how we're going to be handling administrative dismissals a little bit differently.
I'd like to begin by saying that prior to the meeting earlier this month, the board meeting earlier this month, when this topic became discussed, I did kind of have concern in regards to the practice of doing administrative dismissals for non-CDP employee when a CDP employee during the course of the investigation separates from this CDP either through resignation or retirement or whatever means. But then it came to the forefront in the last meeting. So my concern initially was when you look at the policy, I would assert, and it's my belief, that it was just too narrowly interpreted, wherein you have 5 instances when you can administratively dismiss a case. And one of them, the title is not a CDP employee or non-CDP employee. But if you read into that, the context of that is the complaint is against a non-CD employee at the time the complaint is made, not that. So if it's another police department, other city jurisdiction that we don't have authority over, then it would be administratively dismissed. But not in the case that the complaint at the time the allegation was taken was actually an employee of CDP. We would still take those. So in the order or the administrative order that I would be presenting to the office would be we'd move forward where we would exhaust the full investigation and go to the board, and there would be findings regardless of whether the officer or employee was still with the agency. That's consistent with the same practice we have, wherein if an allegation is made after 6 months of the incident occurring, yes, we can impose discipline. However, we still investigate it thoroughly. And, board member Dave Gadian, he kind of really hit on it in the last meeting where he talks about the importance of our responsibility to the community to thoroughly investigate and render a finding to give them some sort of resolution to the actual complaint. And that's why I believe that the intent of the section was for these to be thoroughly investigated and not to be administrative dismissal. But I also believe that it's the best practice moving forward relative to our role in serving the citizens of the city of Cleveland in regards to these complaints. I did amend because since that last meeting, I was contacted by the police commission, and Tawny Smith, who was a complainant on the appeal on the administrative dismissal from the last meeting, she had gone to them and they were inquiring, and they were hopeful that we were going to proceed in a manner consistent with this office directive, where we would be taking these complaints through the entire process and having adjudications rendered. So I did amend the last sentence of the office directive, because I think the discussions not only how do we proceed moving forward, what do we do with these cases in recent history that have been administratively dismissed. So what I wrote, as I said, For applicable cases that have already been adjudicated, the office will proceed in accordance with the board's direction. So it's giving you the authority to make the determination on how we should move forward with some of the cases that have recently been administratively dismissed as a result of a separation, a member of CDP separating from the organization. And to give you some context, in 2025, the entire year, there were a total of 51 allegations that were administratively dismissed. And that's in any one of the 5 administrative dismissals. Those that were dismissed for separation was 42, which is 82% of the administrative dismissals were for separation. Year to date in 26, there's a total of 24 administrative dismissals. 18 of those were a result of the separation, which is 75%. Those 2 years combined is an 80% average of dismissals being for separation purposes. To give you some context, that's broken down by allegations. Breaking it down by cases, in 2025, there were a total of 24 cases that involved an administrative dismissal for separation. In 2026, year to date, there's 13, which is a total of 37. This is a key point. Cases administratively dismissed without an adjudication. There were only 3 in 2025 and 1 in 2026, total of 4. And what does that mean? That means oftentimes we have a case that has multiple CDP members where the case does go before the board to adjudicate, say, 2 members that are still with the organization, but 1 has separated. And we just administratively dismiss that 1 person's separation. So the vast majority of the cases, total of 37, have gone to the board. So it would basically be reopening those 37 cases to see how we would most appropriately adjudicate the member that was deemed to have been administratively dismissed because of separation. And that would take us back to January 1 of 2025. But that's something, and also for context, in 2025, that involved a total of 28 officers, and in 2026 year to date, 14. So a total of 42 officers were impacted.
Okay, thank you for that background and for that information and context. So essentially, we'll be moving forward. This won't be very much different from, when we see a case that we got outside of that 6-month window, we'll still adjudicate it. But when it comes down to if we sustain something, we'll understand that we won't be able to, impose any discipline. As far as looking back to the kind of recent history on the cases that we have administratively dismissed and whether we want to reopen those. I don't know if the board has any thoughts or opinions on that. Obviously, that'd be us, kind of going back through most of the cases are cases that we've looked at already, and we just be kind of evaluating the specific officer who we dismissed out. To Jeff's point, I think he said there's only like 4 cases that we completely did not hear at all. Because it was only involving officers who had been separated. So most of those cases, if we did open them, should be relatively quick because we'd be kind of moving in alignment with what we already did. But just making sure that we put something on the record for the officer that has separated from CDP. So that's one option. The other option is to say, look, this is a policy that we're implementing now. And so from now forward, this is what we're going to do. Back then, that wasn't our policy. So that's not what we did. I think Dahlia is going to come in and tell us something else about reopening cases that we've already adjudicated. So Dahlia, I will turn it over to you.
I just wanted to kind of explain and give some context, I guess. So when an officer is, like, if a case is administratively dismissed because an officer is separated, that doesn't mean that there's not anything on their record.
So the officer one leaves in bad standing. So they do not leave in good standing if there is an open investigation on their record. And also, if they were to essentially reapply and get rehired by the city, right? You guys could then choose to reevaluate that case. So they leave in bad standing and there is an open investigation on their file. So that doesn't just like disappear. So I think that that's something that should be considered in terms of if we choose to move forward with this directive. I know that Dr. Anderson had some concerns about this, and we had spoken to the monitoring team about this before and had come to a decision that we weren't going to stop administratively dismissing cases like this happened before Jeff wrote this directive. And so we do plan on having a meeting this week and or next week with Dr. Anderson to address so that they can have a conversation. I was unaware that this is something that we were going to be moving forward with until like right now. But I do think you guys should consider that, technically speaking, the officers aren't just like free and clear because they separate from the police department. They still have the open investigation as well as leaving in bad standing. So that's something to be considered when you guys are going to decide whether or not you want to reopen them. That's just something that I wanted to put out there for you guys in your consideration.
The one thing I would say is I spoke to the monitor about this, and they're 100% on board. They said that they fought this fight before, and they were
Yeah,
denied.
we've had
but
this
they felt they
conversation
fought in the past that it
multiple
should
times.
be as we want to move forward as that office member.
No, I understand. I'm just
direction.
saying that we still need to have that meeting that we were talking about last week.
Dave?
So if an officer has an investigation and no determination has been made, their file, or in the event that they reapply to the city or whoever else is looking at that file, it says they're in bad standing?
Yeah, they leave in bad standing because there was
Okay.
an open investigation on their file.
Okay. I guess I think we've typically looked at it from the other point of view, but I would say that that could also be unfair to the officer. I mean, if it was something that we may have adjudicated and said they did nothing wrong, they shouldn't have this, black mark kind of hanging over them. And the other thing is, I wonder if somebody did come back and then we're told, hey, they're back. Do you want to adjudicate this case? Are the cows already out of the barn on that one? I mean, if we brought somebody back and we hadn't adjudicated. So I believe that presents another good reason why we should be adjudicating every case, even if there's not going to be discipline, even if we know they're no longer here for whatever reason, it's administratively dismissed, any of those reasons, we should still adjudicate the case. Because we also still have the citizen that made the complaint. I believe an administrative dismissed rationale is that the officer died. I'm pretty sure that's one of them, one of the reasons. I think we should still adjudicate that, not for any action on the officer, of course, but the citizen deserves to have their case heard.
Yeah, I think those are all good points. Dahlia, I know that this meeting between OPS and your office and the PAT team hasn't happened yet, but you indicated that Dr. Anderson had some concerns. Do you know what those concerns are, even generally?
I can speak generally, I guess. I don't really want to speak for her just because
Sure.
she's not here, but I know the law department had some concerns, one in terms of resources as well as in terms of the fact that you guys have, well, at least OPS has a almost 400 case backlog.
Sure.
So this would also make that worse. And I know that
Yep.
the board itself has what, 125 case backlog, at least
Sure.
so as of like July. So that's a concern because this would then increase that backlog because we have to go backwards, not forwards. Also, so that those were the law department's concerns for that I'm aware of, at least right now. And then I know the PAT team was concerned for how this would affect other stakeholders in terms of board, their team, what this means for the manuals, and then also monitoring team as well, which I know, Jeff, you spoke to them, but monitoring team as well as the commission. So there's just a lot of players that would then be that would need to get an update if this is how we're choosing to do this. So she just had those types of concerns, and there's some other things as well. And she's open to talking to the board as well as Jeff about her concerns. But I know that we're trying to do that meeting this week. We're just waiting for Hannah to get back because she is currently out of the office.
Okay, thank you for that context. Yeah, so I think as far as the backlogs, I understand the concern on a practical level. I don't think that we should be making our policy decisions based on, or I guess this really isn't a policy, it's more of a procedure decision. Our procedure decision based on the fact that we have a backlog, if it's the way we want to proceed, right? So if we're saying, hey, we think that this makes the most sense, it gets to the spirit of what we're supposed to be doing. It helps obviously keep the public trust up if we are investigating all cases. All these things we've already talked about. I wouldn't want the fact that we have a backlog to then usurp all of that. Just from a philosophical standpoint, from a practical standpoint. That's why I appreciate, Jeff, that you kind of pulled the numbers on this. Practically moving forward, what this really means is that there's maybe one or two officers in a particular case that we now make a motion for, where before we wouldn't have made a motion for them. So like the reality of how much increased work we're going to have by doing this is like very, very minimal. There's been 4 cases over the last 2 years where we would have actually heard an entire case that we wouldn't have heard. So I think the reality of how much workload we're putting on ourselves moving forward is actually not very much at all. I think as far as whether or not we want to reopen the cases that have already happened in the last couple of years, I do think that it is a compelling argument that we don't necessarily add that to our plate, particularly because of the fact that, like you said, Dahlia, there's already, like, there's gonna be something there to denote that, like, they left while they were under investigation. So, and again, I'm just one member of the board. I don't want the board to think I'm speaking for everybody, but for me, I think I'm comfortable with us not necessarily going back and continuing to move forward on this with this. And then quickly to address what you said about potentially what the PAT team's issues may be. I don't know that we need to change the manuals based on our review of the manuals or anything like that. I don't think we do. This is an interpretation of the manuals, and based on the actual reading of the manual, what we're trying to do is probably actually more in line with our manuals and the rules than what we've been doing as far as our administrative dismissals. So I don't know that it'll actually affect any other stakeholders because nothing else really needs to change as far as like what's written. So yeah, so I think that this will be hopefully a very, it shouldn't be it's not going to have a huge effect on how we do things on the overall thing. So it seems like a good idea, and I don't think that it's really going to affect very, very many stakeholders. Yeah, go ahead. I see your hand up.
Yeah, I would just advise that the board doesn't make a decision until we have that meeting with Dr. Anderson. And I know, Brandon, you wanted to be in that meeting as well, but I would advise the board not to make a decision until that meeting happens. But as always, you guys can do what you prefer. But my legal advice is that you do not make a decision until that meeting occurs.
Okay, I don't know. Does anybody else on the board have any thoughts? I mean, I don't feel like we meet again in 2 weeks. So like us waiting 2 weeks, I'm not drastically concerned with. I will say this. I don't know that the board necessarily needs to vote to allow Jeff to even do this, because I think that this kind of falls directly within running the Office of Professional Standards and determining as far as whether or not they're going to do their investigations, that portion. What they're going to choose to move forward with investigating is separate from what, as a board, we are saying we want to review and see in front of us. But yeah, so I don't know if the board members, do you guys have any thoughts? I mean, I've been talking a lot. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on this as far as good idea, bad idea. Again, this is really just us saying we're not going to administratively dismiss because an officer separated. We're going to actually make an adjudication, even though we can't discipline.
I think we don't need to make any decisions today. If something comes up that says, yes, we do need to approve some procedure or policy or whatever, we could vote on it. I don't believe it's urgent. I don't think there's any reason for us to move forward until the other interested parties in this meeting have an opportunity to, speak and maybe shed some light that, we're not considering.
Sure.
So in other words, I don't think we need to do anything today.
The one thing I would share is that as the administrator of this office, I don't think it's beneficial when something is pretty simple as this and pretty clear as this causes such a big delay. I mean, it's how then are the other things that we're going to try to implement going to be delayed? There needs to be some level of streamlining some things. And this not being a policy change, which there's requirements for us to do, if that were the case, it's just something to consider, wherein as an independent agency that I'm hired because of my over 30 years of experience, primarily in investigations. I know best practices. I'm able to interpret policy and procedure. I'm even actually able to write it, and I have written it. And I just find it just discerning in regards to moving forward if we're going to be having to go through this type of a delayed process when something as simple as this is taking weeks. Because I think this was dated, I think when I first sent it out, it was a couple of weeks ago. It was like 2 days after the last meeting. And now we're, so it's just because I've had a number come across my across my desk already. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to administratively dismiss this. We're going to follow through with the investigation. It just seems like it's the right thing to do. And I can't imagine I'm getting the pushback that I'm getting, especially when I'm hearing some things that I wouldn't even consider in changing and implementing what I believe is the appropriate interpretation of this policy. Backlog, doing the right thing, backlog would never influence me not to do what I believe to be the right thing. So I'm just sharing a little bit of my frustration.
I do want to say that we are not purposely trying to delay this. And when I did get this directive on the 14th, I believe, of August, but it is not like purposely trying to delay. We just want to make sure that we have a conversation and that everybody who would potentially be affected by this does have is aware of it and does have a chance to speak with you. That's all. But I just want to say that we're not purposely trying to delay anything, and I understand your frustration.
Shanoa.
Well, I think Dave was before me, and I believe Waverly as well. So I just wanted to give them a chance to speak first.
All right, Dave.
I guess I'll backtrack. I'll agree with Mr. Weininger on this. We don't need to necessarily seek outside, permission for anything we're doing. I think it's always smart to hear all sides. This is, I agree, well thought out. I can't see a real downside to it. But that said, if somebody outside of this feels that the implementation of this new procedure is a bad idea, they could pick up their phone and they can call. And if some new light is shed on this, then it could be brought to us and we could say, whoa, there is a good reason not to do this on any policy or procedure. We have the right to do that. So I guess I'll backtrack on saying, let's wait and see. And we've hired Mr. Wenninger for good reasons. He understands, what we do. He's got a good background of understanding the rationale behind policies and procedures. I would defer to what he just said, and let's move forward. And if somebody outside, if Dr. Anderson thinks this is the worst idea that ever happened to the city of Cleveland, pick up the telephone, call Mr. Wenninger and say, here's where you missed something. And if he says, wow, you're right, I never thought of that, then he's a smart guy. He can say back to the board, hey, here's something that came up that we need to reconsider. So I don't know, I twirled around there. I'll flip and flop on that one.
Okay, who's next? Waverly or Shanoa?
Waverly.
I think Member Gatton hit the nail right on the head. I think that we hired Mr. Wenninger for a reason, his expertise, and I don't think that we should purposely go outside of the expertise that we got. We should handle it internally. And like Member Gatton said, if somebody sees a red flag, they'll bring it to our attention. And if somebody doesn't, we'll move forward.
Member Miller?
Sorry,
Vice Chair.
No, you're good. So I agree with recently Gatton's sentiments as well as Waverly's. I think there's nothing wrong with pursuing this initiative. I will say that there's also nothing wrong with having a preliminary conversation. So I don't think it'll create, in my opinion, I don't think it will create a hard stop in the road, having a conversation with the respective parties that may be, I guess, affected or have any type of diverse perspective in the process of now, backtracking or going back and looking at certain cases. I don't think that is like detrimental to the progression of what we plan on doing, especially Brandon, like you said, if it falls within our new administrator's purview, if it falls within his work, he absolutely has the capacity in terms of not running, but his specific skill set for OPS to do this anyway. But I do think it is how can I say this, a focus that we had in hiring the new administrator to sit here and say, hey, we have these intergovernmental relations for a reason. So to have the conversation, I am in support of, but also just the overall initiative of going back, looking at these dismissals, I'm also in support of. But that was just my thoughts, my quick sentiments. There you go.
I guess the one thing I don't want to be misunderstood. I'm always open for dialogue and conversation. I guess it's hey, they want to talk to you, and we're 2 weeks out, and nobody's scheduled anything to talk to me. It's as easy as like Dave Gatton said, it's just pick up the phone. I can answer your questions, and we can just move forward. I don't think it requires such a formality of getting so many people together, especially in this case. I mean, it's really pretty clear. I mean, I get it if there's a lot of things, red tape that I have to go through, but in this case, that's not necessarily the circumstance. And especially when I've run it by the monitor, and they were like, about time. I mean, because this is one thing they actually was explained to me. They were arguing should have been done in the past, but they met resistance. So that speaks volumes to me. And I think it's really important because how we're perceived by the monitor and things like that. It's important, and how they see us operate, not only as an office and as a board, but as a city. And I just think it's when things can be timely, they ought to be.
Understandably so. And I will also say thank you for the clarity.
Oh yeah.
I do think that it's important to meet with everyone who is an interested party. Like Shanoa said, but also in terms of the delay in scheduling and the thing is, one, there's only 2 people in the PAT team right now, so we would hope that we could get a meeting with both of them because they don't have a big team right now, which is kind of like why we're on a little bit of a, I guess, delay. I don't want to say that because we still haven't figured out when we're going to meet, but we know that it's coming up within the next well before our next board meeting. We will be meeting. Also, the way that this normally does work is that any changes in the office in terms of policy or procedure usually does go through the PAT team to ensure that it is in accordance with the consent decree. So that's more or less why we usually do speak to them before we change the way that the policy or procedures works within OPS. So I'm saying that so that it's understood that we're not purposely halting the administrator. We're not purposely trying to stop anything that he wants to do, but it is important to have that conversation, which is kind of like what I've been trying to promote when I'm speaking, is that it is, in my opinion, and it's always best practice to hear from everyone who is involved or everyone who has some sort of stake in this process before we just go through and implement something, because I'm not super duper familiar with the consent decree like the way Dr. Anderson and Hannah are. There's those types of considerations. Also, you have the monitoring team's perspective, but I didn't have that when I talked to my direct supervisor or Dr. Anderson about this, so that we didn't have that perspective, all those types of things. And there's context from these conversations that you don't know because you weren't here, same as me, right? So I think all these things are important to discuss before we decide to just change policy. But again, that's just my 2 cents. You guys are open to do what you'd like, but I do think that that's all to be considered when making a decision of if you guys want to wait to talk about it more or do what you will.
Member Saganovich.
So I actually have a question. I think it's probably to Dahlia. Is the concern what Mr. Wenninger is suggesting, that we go back and look at the cases since January of 2025 and that the backlog is going to bog us down, or is the concern going forward? Because my take is we could at least go forward, and then if we have to have further discussion about whether we're going to go backwards, let's have that discussion later. But there's no reason not to implement it now going forward.
So again, like I said before, I don't really want to speak for Dr. Anderson because I only got a brief perspective of what her concerns are. But from conversations that I know that we've had previously with the monitoring team about this and the PAT team about this, it's a concern going backwards and going forwards. Because the thing is that we completely understand if you guys go backwards and somebody else comes back. That's not really, that's a normal process, and that's something that we've been doing, so that's not really an issue. But I think the concerns are both ways, but I'm not 100% positive, so I don't want to like truly promise that that is the concern. I think this is something that, which I know is not like really answering your question, but I'm not 100% sure, but I do believe it's either or.
So I'm a little confused why they would be concerned about going forward. It seems like this is a good practice and something we should seriously consider. And I think most of us agree it's a good idea. So I don't think they should have any say in it forward. And if they think it's a bad practice, I would question them.
So I would kind of agree, but I guess the thing is also I don't want us to get too far down the rabbit hole of speculation about what the issues may be. And part of this is my own fault because I did ask Dahlia to try to anticipate what the PAT team, what their issues may be. They may not be very substantive at all. It may be as simple as, hey, we just wanted to touch base about it. And it might be that simple. What I will say is I think that I do agree with you, Diana, that it seems like I can't really find any reason to not go forward. that is legitimate enough for us to not go forward now. I can understand some of the issues with moving backward, and so um, I am going. So I think that it'd be okay for us to move forward with um, implementing this moving forward, and then just hold off on figuring out whether or not we want to go through the backlog or not, if that's what the board wants to do. Um, I think I'd be okay with that. But again, I'm just one of 8 right now, one of 6 on the call. Diana.
So, yeah, I would recommend we go forward with this. And I'd also think that if people want to have a further discussion about whether we have the time and ability to do the back ones, I think I'd like to have a little bit. I understand what you said, Mr. Weniger, and I think it would be a small number of cases that we'd have to look at. But I think we have to decide whether we really do want to go backwards at another time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll do this. I think we've had enough discussion at least to make a motion. So what I'll do is I will move for
I'm
for
sorry. Before you could continue, you want to actually put a motion on the floor. I didn't know that this was a matter that required a motion because I know you have previously stated this kind of already falls within the administrator's purview in terms of his work.
Yeah, good point. So I mean, I would argue that it doesn't need a motion. Like I think that as far as Administrator Weniger making the decision to investigate these cases, to me that is within OPS,
Mhm.
and I don't think that he needs us to make a motion for that. I would
Mhm.
still want to. I mean, it's one of those situations where I think as a board, it's good for us to just kind of publicly back what he's doing,
Mhm.
especially because we also do have to make a motion to decide that we're going to hear these cases, which are technically kind of 2 separate things. I know it's kind of it's a thin line because it's like if he's investigating and we're not adjudicating, then what's the point? But I do think they're technically 2 separate things that should be treated separately.
Got
Uh,
it.
but yeah, but I think part of it really is also just to kind of provide a vote of confidence in the directive.
Okay, thank you for the rationale. Thank you.
hmm Diana, I saw you had a hand up. Did you want to say something else?
I'm not sure I can totally get the thought out in terms of whether it's a good idea to start doing motions for any kind of procedural changes in the office. Have we ever done that before? Or have we just allowed the administrator to do procedural changes? Because if we've just allowed him to do procedural changes, I do agree that we should voice our confidence in the administrator and his decision-making. But I guess I would defer to the idea that, have we done this before? And what is Mr. Weniger seeking? Is he seeking us to make a motion and vote in favor of this? Or is he just doing this more as information in the discussion?
I think for clarification purposes, the motion isn't for how OPS is going to handle the cases. It is how specifically the board is going to handle the cases moving forward. Is that true? So the motion is essentially so that the board can hear the cases that would have been administratively dismissed rather than it does. So the motion itself isn't touching OPS, it's touching the board and what they choose to hear. If that is if I'm understanding what Brandon is saying correctly.
Yes, and you explained it kind of better than than what I did. So yeah, but that's the motion that I think we need as a board is to say what the board's going to do. I think as it related to OPS, it was more, like I said, kind of a vote of confidence, which I guess technically by us voting as a board to move forward with it, that kind of implies that. Because yeah, I get what you're saying, Diana, about precedent and things like. Because I think we normally don't vote on the administrator's procedures in that way. Depending on like what it affects. If it affects something that we have to vote on, then we will. But spending and things like that. But
Yeah, what's kind of interesting is in doing my due diligence and understanding how we got to where we currently are. Nobody knows when the decision was to start handling how we currently do. But I think there's a strong argument that if you read the codified policy, it is not consistent with the written policy. And I don't believe that there was nothing done officially that one could look back on and say, on this day, this was when the decision was made, and moving forward, this is when we saw the change in the interpretation of the policy. So that's just a consideration I'm thinking of in regards to memorializing down the road if someone were to ask, when did this happen? But it's just kind of, I mean, yeah, I guess we do have the memorandum that would be the office directive, but there's really no fingerprint on when the decision was to handle them like this. And I suggest it probably was made for the purposes of trying to get through cases more quickly, which I don't believe should ever be the motivation. We have a responsibility to the citizens to thoroughly investigate and give them some type of resolution, regardless of the status of the employee in which the allegation was made against. So that's just my thought. But I do understand. I'm not an expert in boards and all that sort of thing. So I do appreciate the historical perspective relative to, is this what we really actually do or not? And like I said, I don't see this as a policy change. I don't see this as a huge change. It's just, I'm like, well, I don't think it fits. Let's go ahead and investigate this thing. And it's, to be honest with you, it's almost just as easy to investigate them as it is to administratively dismiss them. There, some that I've had come on across my desk since the last meeting, I'm like, you can be done with this tomorrow if we just adjudicate it as whatever. All you need to do is this one extra step, and we're done. And we have a closed case, thoroughly and accurately and completely investigated.
Okay, Dave.
I hate to belabor it. I don't think we should make any motions about anything at all. Let Mr. Winninger do his job. If he presents a case to us that we think need to be dismissed, guess what we're going to do? Motion to dismiss. It's a dead horse here, but I don't like, it's a procedure, and we're setting a precedent that we're going to vote on a procedure, or how we're going to handle procedure or whatever. We've hired this guy to do his job. Let's let him do his job. If he starts presenting things that we go, whoa, wait a minute, we didn't think that's what you were going to be doing. Somebody needs to raise their hand and make a motion to say, we don't want to hear this case, or we didn't like the way this case was put together, or go back to the drawing board on this procedure. Let him do his job without interference from us, without interference from outside people saying, we want to have a meeting. If he deems that he thinks there's something that we need to vote on, or that he needs to have a meeting with somebody outside, let him decide that. I'm pointing down here because that's where he is on my screen. Let him do his job. This is the kind of stuff that's going to drive him crazy if every time something comes up that, hey, there's something we need to change, 9 people on a board and 6 people in the outside world say, we need to have a discussion about this. We've beat it up for almost an hour here already. And I know that it's ironic that I'm belaboring it more, but I'll shut up now.
Okay, no, look, so Diana.
I just want to say I'm with Dave on that last comments.
Okay,
We just need to let Mr. Winninger do his job.
Yeah.
And if other people need to find out something, they can pick up the phone and call him.
Okay, yeah.
Me too. I'm with Dave on this one.
Okay, well, it sounds like yeah. Okay, so Jeff, I mean, it seems generally that the board is on board with what you sent, right? We're not going to resist you on this, right? So you can know that that's the case, right? We're not going to make any motions necessarily on it. I think, Dave, I really like the point that you made about when we see cases in front of us, if we want to dismiss them, we can do that. We don't necessarily need to make some kind of overarching proclamation that, like, from now on, we're going to hear these cases, because ultimately it's OPS who brings the cases to us. And there's nothing that we've ever said that told them they can't bring these cases to us. And so I think for now, and if for whatever reason something needs to change in September, if we can do that. But I think for now we can just move forward. We're not gonna reopen the. I think we do need a motion to reopen the cases before. We would need that, and I don't think we're gonna vote on that now. We'll wait for September to see if we're gonna go backwards. But as far as moving forward, I think it seems like it's fine for you to just move forward. We're not voting on it.
This is what I'll do. I appreciate the insight that the PAT team can give me. It seems like it makes sense to have this intention of this office directive going out September 1st. And I will make whatever efforts are necessary for me to hear their concerns and collaborate with them and to see if there's anything that would change my position on whether this is an appropriate way to proceed. But so that I guess that's what I will that'll be my intention, to implement this starting September 1st, and in the meantime meet with the PAT team and continue to collaborate with Dahlia as well from the law department to hear everybody out, because I do agree that it's important. Don't get me wrong. I just get frustrated. I see this as something very, very simple, and I'm like, I'm getting stuck in quicksand on something like this. Good Lord. When we're talking about real meaningful change, is it ever going to happen? If everybody wants to have their 2 cents heard. That's just what I was trying to share, my frustration with that.
Yep. Okay. All right. I think we belabored the point enough to Dave's point. But I do think this was a necessary conversation, both for this specifically, but I just think also philosophically kind of understanding the board and our administrator and the PAT team and the monitor and their team and her team and kind of where we all fit together, which is obviously a constant conversation of like kind of re-understanding all of that. Okay. 2024 OPS case 2024-0202. I had this case added and I don't remember why. Oh, this was that specific case, right? That we dismissed for this, and then the complainant went over to the CPC, and now did the CPC ask us to reopen it? And
yeah,
and
they asked us to fully investigate it and adjudicate it. They and I said I informed them that would be a board decision. That I don't disagree with the premise of the fact that the case warrants being fully investigated based on my interpretation of the policy, but whether we go back and open up cases that have already been adjudicated is outside of my purview. So that's kind of where we left it. But their position is it needs to be investigated, and all of these need to be investigated.
Yes, so to open it, the board would have to make a motion to reopen that case.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that if the CPC is asking us to do it, for one, also because they technically have, I think they have independent ability to open it themselves as well. So even if we decided not to, it wouldn't stop the case from being open. So because of that, I think we probably do move forward. We're just reopening it. Is my thoughts. I don't know if anybody else has any other thoughts on this. This was a case that was dismissed because the officer was no longer with CDP, kind of like what we're talking about. This doesn't necessarily have any bearing on our overall view of whether or not we're going to go back and adjudicate all 37 or 42 of those other cases. But I think for this case, because the CPC has specifically requested it, I think we probably should reopen this one. And I don't know if board members, you guys have any other thoughts on it before we make any motions. Okay. Hearing none, I move that we reopen OPS case number 2024-0202 for full investigation and adjudication by OPS and the board, respectively. Did I miss a hand?
No,
Okay,
that's
seconded
right.
by members. Seconded by member Saganovich. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carried. Yeah, sorry if I missed somebody's hand. I'm clicking between screens, and I'll flash back, and I happen to see it disappear. Okay, so that's that. And so the last thing we have on our agenda is public safety response to board findings. So this is a conversation that we had kind of touched on some like months ago, and I wanted to bring this discussion back up. We don't necessarily have to have the full-fledged discussion today, and maybe we kind of queue it up now and then dive in more on at our September meeting. But I really am interested in making sure that we are getting the proper communication from the public safety department. So I guess case prep is usually who we send all of our findings letters when we make sustained findings to. We send them our sustained findings letters, and we ask them to send us basically a checked off return document saying, hey, we received this, we have it, we're going to process it. My understanding is that we have not been receiving those, for one, at least not consistently. And secondly, so that's the first part, but that's just kind of a confirmation thing. Second, I also want us to, I want to make sure that we are getting the adjudications from, not the adjudications, but the hearing information from the public safety director post hearing. So, I was talking. This is something I was talking with our administrative assistant Jalecia about, which is that we really should be keeping track once we make a sustained finding of when we send out the findings letter to CDP to public safety, when public safety has their pre-disciplinary hearing, and when they get us back their response. I'd like to track that because we've had cases where we find out that a pre-disciplinary hearing wasn't had for a year after we, sent out our findings letter. And then once they have the pre-disciplinary hearing, now obviously it's 60 days until we have to send out a final adjudication. And so if we're not getting their findings, especially if they depart, if we're not getting that for 45 days, that gives us 2 weeks to kind of scramble. We haven't run into this a whole lot, but I want to make sure that we're keeping track of that stuff. So I don't know what that conversation, Jeff, may look like with case prep and those folks over there, but I'd like for us to get our arms around what's happening to our sustained findings after they leave the board meetings, right? And being able to track from the time we make our decision to the time the officer actually gets disciplined. And I want to make sure it's very clear, and maybe it's clearer than what I understand, and it's easy for something for you guys to pull in the OPS case file. But if a complainant comes to us and says, hey, what happened to that officer in that case? I heard you guys do a sustained finding. You said group level 2. What happened to that officer? I want to be able to provide them with an answer within a reasonable time, right? To either say, oh, actually the discipline itself is still pending, or this is exactly what happened, right? It was a 5-day suspension. We should be able to pull that and keep that info. So I don't know, it may be a conversation, Jeff, you and I have to have offline. And board members, I don't know if you guys have any additional thoughts, but I wanted to bring it in front of the board and in front of the public, just making sure that we are keeping track. Because otherwise, we could be, I don't think we are, but we could be screaming into the void and nobody's listening, and we're just making all these sustained findings and the public safety director is not doing anything with them. I know that's not the case because we've gotten some letters from them back that says, hey, we've implemented your discipline. Most of the ones that I've seen is usually when they don't really agree, and they make it and the public safety director makes it very clear that they're not in agreement, but they're going to move forward with it anyway, which is heartening to some degree because that means that they're at least respecting what the charter says. Okay, yeah, I'll stop word vomiting, but yeah, that's kind of what my thought processes were on that. So I don't know if board members, you guys have any thoughts on that, but it's a conversation I'll probably continue with Jalecia and Jeff to just make sure that we have something in place so that we're keeping track of all that stuff.
Yeah, but just to let you know where I am on that. I concur with you that that's very important. My vision is that the process continue through to the ultimate point where we get the final and it becomes part of the case. So when you bring up the case in IA Pro, you'll be able to see what the disposition of the case was through the city and when the discipline what discipline and when it was imposed. That said, I've been speaking with the general manager here, Jessica Watson, our senior investigator, Art Boker. I've spoken to Kyle Campbell over at Case Prep, and we're trying to create a system that's going to be effective for Jalicia and our shop, as well as a CDP, to ensure that this will be a seamless transition of information. So we are working on it. I can report back to you as this proceeds, but it's certainly on our radar and something we're working on.
Okay, thank you. Sounds good. I would ask if anybody has anything else, but we can't talk about anything else because it's not on the agenda. So with that, I am going to entertain a motion to adjourn.
I
Motion
second
to
that.
adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Member Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions?
Nope.
That motion carries. All right, we are adjourned at 12:02. Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys. I'll see you soon.